business. Sick man and witness my musical litmus. Just for your fitness, beg my forgiveness. My records go Guinness, so be my apprentice. Unicorn hacking in Venice, angel investors, my internet tennis. Still criminal till I spill it to finish. Survival the fittest, the digital menace. I'm still in idle the scene, popping them volumes and sipping caffeine. Marshall web packets in us a routine that I write to a stream with a proxy between. Embedded radix and word, macros disabled, your boy ain't deterred. Wire transferred, social the teller and teller you heard about the king nerd. I keep it swab on the phone, shut off utilities, black out your home, cracking the wireless back with a...
Hello, welcome to episode 5 of the Canceled Podcast. This is Cyan Bannister with my co-host Lee Bishop. Hi, Lee.
Howdy.
Hi. We have special guests here today. I'm super excited.
We do. It's a full room.
These are two of the most important people in my life. And so I'm kind of nervous. I'm really excited.
No, don't be.
So one of them you know, because we already hinted that one of them is Chris Collins. So sorry, Chris, I'm not going to call you by your handle. But should I say what it is?
Knock
or is it a
yourself
secret?
out.
Slack farmer. Because he likes Slack.
Eternal salvation or triple your money back.
Yeah, exactly, man. Give me my slack or give me death.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also have Rattle, who I'm going to try very, very hard not to say his real name.
Yeah, I'm challenging her to it. I don't care if she says my real name, but I'm challenging Cyan to see if she can
Okay,
hold to it.
Nick, what was my handle?
There you go.
Oh.
The scientist. The scientist.
Shit.
Okay, we're done. It's fine. We already got, less than like 30 seconds in and
I can't believe it.
Wait.
I mean, Tom.
It's okay.
Wait, but what about her gutter punk nickname?
Yeah, what was my gutter punk nickname?
Oh.
Come on.
Do I remember that? No, I don't think I remember that.
It was cyanide.
Cyanide.
Cyanide. Ah.
Cyanide death.
Cyanide death. And then some of the squatters called me Strychnine. I don't know why.
That doesn't make much sense.
It didn't really make any sense. But they'd be like, "What's up, Strychnine?" I'm like, I really hope that doesn't stick.
It's when
Yeah, that one kind of sucks. I thought scientist was pretty cool.
Yeah. In all fairness, I didn't come up with it. I don't remember who did. But I was like in a car and someone said it and I was like, oh, that's brilliant. Because actually before Scientist, I was Dystopia.
Dystopia.
Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
I was not Scientist. I was not that clever.
Well, same thing with me. My handle was given to me. I didn't pick it myself.
So what is with it? Because I actually have never asked. I thought it had to do with like a snake.
Oh yeah, well it's funny. I've been asked to tell this story so many times recently. But basically, when I was like a young kid, like 12 years old or whatnot, my dad taught me all kinds of cool stuff, and one of the things he was really into was ham radio and whatnot. So we had all kinds of radio equipment around. And I was always chatting it up on the CB with anybody who I could find on the CB. It was just one of those things that was fun to do. And as you can tell, I talk a lot.
You rattle on.
Yes, I do.
I get it.
And at some point, somebody just asked me, like, what's your handle? What's your call sign? I'm like, what's a handle? What's a call sign? He's like, well, you're Rattle.
And that's how it happened.
And that's how it happened. This was before BBSs. This is before IRC, internet, anything like that. And it's Rattle. And at some point, like a year or two later, I'm logging into a BBS for the first time. It asks you your handle. I type in Rattle. Game over. That's it. Ever since.
That's it.
I mean, it's on my Wikipedia page. It's written in stone. I don't care. People use it with me interchangeably all the time. Sometimes it's Nick. Sometimes it's Rattle. I can, get a kick out of it. Sometimes I hear Rattle called out in the distance, and I go, oh, I got a hacker buddy behind me.
Sometimes you hear a baby with a rattle.
Yeah, Well,
Sorry.
I always use the snake reference, but whatever works.
I always thought it was rattlesnake.
Yeah.
I admittedly never asked. Interestingly, I started out as Dystopia, and I'm sure Chris can figure out why. But I was actually Doom before Dystopia, and then Doom the game came out, and then I couldn't be Doom.
But it was Doom
The band.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Doom the band. So it was Krusty Punk.
Mm-hmm.
So I was Dystopia the Krusty Punk hacker person. Or something like that. Anyway, Chris, how did we meet?
So let's see. I lived in North Phoenix, and every once in a while I would adventure out to Tempe, mostly because of Eastside Records, which was like a record shop that focused,
we lived at.
we lived at. But one of the draws to Eastside Records was that they were like the place to buy 7-inch punk rock like albums, and so
Oh God, I had a passion for that.
yeah.
Me too.
It was like the Quickie Mart and like Jay and Silent Bob for us. Like if you weren't in the record store, you're hanging out in front of like
The record store.
Yeah. And so I in high school, I listened to like Crass and a lot of like the British like punk that was out there. We tried to avoid the poppy punk like No Effects, which I love now. Um,
Bleh.
I liked them a lot back in the day, but it just didn't age well with me.
I think they're
I like the
great.
person,
Sure.
the guy who sings in it. But
Was
I
it
No.
Fat Mike?
Fat
Yeah,
Mike.
I like Fat
Actually,
Mike.
Fat Mike as a person is a mess, but whatever.
don't- I like him. Anyway,
I thought the guitar work with the No Effects stuff was always really solid, actually.
yeah.
So yeah, in high school I used to wear this like green army jumpsuit to school every day, and I used to wear like this gas mask in the class, and
As one does.
and I used to cover it in patches. And so one day I found this really nice patch at Eastside Records, and it was a Crass patch, one of my favorite bands at the time, and it was a quote from one of their albums, which said, "Be warned, the nature of your oppression is the aesthetic of our anger," and it
That's
took up the patch was so large it took up the whole backside of the jumpsuit, and one day I'm like trolling down Mill Avenue in Tempe, Arizona, and somebody's sitting on the sidewalk, which is illegal in Tempe, by the way. Like I was arrested for that once. Said, "Hey, I made that," and I turn around and I go, "Made what?" And she goes, "That patch on your back." And I'm like, "Okay, if you made that patch on my back, where did it come from?" She's like, "It came from Eastside Records." And I'm like, "Okay, you made my patch." And so that kind of like,
I think it was literally those words, actually.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, because you were testing me.
I
You're like, I
was-
don't know if you actually made this patch, you crusty punk kid sitting on the sidewalk.
Correct. so pretty much like after that, we probably were pretty inseparable for
Well,
there.
forever.
Yeah,
From that point on.
that's all it took.
It's actually not quite true. Not
Yeah.
quite true. But it was, you want me to tell my version of the story? Because there's always.
I'm sure
two
I
versions.
probably said something messed up at some point.
No, you didn't say anything messed up. Anyway, what happened was you gave me your phone number and you told me to come over and hang out at your mom's sign shop.
Mm.
And I didn't call. So what happened was we were hanging out at another coffee shop. We always hung out at coffee shops. Everything was not higher ground. It was the one that was behind.
Jabba the Hutt.
I think so.
Oh my God, that's
Coffee
crazy. There was a
plantation.
place called Java the Hut where I kind of grew up in like Belmar, New Jersey area, and the Lucas people basically threatened to sue them if they didn't change
Oh
the
my
name.
gosh.
You have a similar story.
Well, I have a Lucasfilm story which I'm not allowed to talk about, Rattle, because they will sue me. Anyways, we're not going there.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, some mega corporation called Disney will ruin my life. Um, maybe I can get clearance for it.
But you do have memorabilia.
I do have lots of memorabilia from them because of it. Anyway, back to what happened. So one time at a coffee shop, I see this guy, who's you, sitting at the coffee shop by the glow of the light of a laptop. And I walk over and I'm like, oh, it's that guy that bought my patch. And I was like, what's up? And you're like, you never called.
Okay, that sounds right.
And you're like, you want to see some anime?
Oh no.
Yeah. And then you started showing me all this anime.
It was probably like ASCII art, like animated ASCII art.
Yeah, it was like, you want to
Oh,
see this?
cool.
You want to see that? And then at some point I said, hey, can you get online with that thing? And you're like, yeah.
Oh hell is that?
Oh, yeah. You're like, I have a modem. And I'm like, awesome. Then what? And you're like, we got to go someplace.
I protected that laptop in a gang fight one time.
I bet.
No,
I think Chris was probably the only person in my world who had a laptop. How did you get that laptop?
Yeah, so like age 15 or 16, I worked at a used computer shop where they were refurbishing like used memory and motherboards, and I used to have to like test printers and keyboards and like 20 megabyte Seagate S2225 like hard drives, MFM hard drives. Old stuff that nobody would even bat an eye at now. But I got my laptop used there, and in my high school, I was like the only kid with a laptop. And so one day my coworker needed a ride home, and it was in South Phoenix. I'm driving home, and he's like, "Hey, can we stop at the Circle K?" And I'm like, "Sure, no problem." And so I stop, and he goes to get a pack of smokes or something. And then while that's happening, I hear like this like fight happening like around my car. I'm in this like 4-door Chevy Nova that looks like out of the Beastie Boys like sabotage
Oh, the
videos.
Chevy Nova.
I actually had labeled every door, like labeled every component of the car with like vinyl stickers that said like door, wheel, trunk, hood. But anyways,
Just in
I
case you
diverged.
forgot.
Yeah. So there's a fight happening. I turn around and they're like, "What? Who you claiming?" And they're like, "Southside, blah blah blah." I turn around and see a guy dragging a girl across the parking lot by her hair, and then all of a sudden there's like gunshots. And so I slid down in my seat. I cradled the laptop and protected it just in case bullets would come through the car and damage like my like lively possession.
So
And
you're a little bit more worried about the laptop being damaged than you being
at
damaged.
that time, I was,
Okay.
I played a prank
That's
on Chris.
dedication. I appreciate that.
One time you know how I like to play pranks. Uh, somebody the other day said I should play a prank on you, and I was like, I think I've pretty much used up all my prank like privileges for like the rest of my life on Chris. I don't think I'm allowed to play any more pranks on Chris. But I pranked Chris once because I thought it'd be really cool to also have a laptop, but I couldn't afford one. So I went to like Kmart or something and bought a kitty laptop. You know those ones that teach you the ABCs?
Mm-hmm.
But it was the right shape and it was the right weight. And then I got a laptop case and brought it over to his house, and everyone was in on it but Chris. And so he's like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "It's my new laptop." And he's like, "Oh, can I see it? Can I see it?" I was like, no, you can't see it. And this went on for like an hour. And you're like, how fast is it? Like, tell me the specs. And I'm like, I don't remember. I think Andrew was like, he said he saw it. And he's like, I played with it. It's really badass. Anyway, at some point I go to the bathroom and Chris just cannot control himself. And he goes and dives into my laptop bag and pulls out this like speak and spell, learn your ABCs laptop. And I hear it thrown across the room and smash. He's like, I hate you. I hate you. It was pretty funny.
Now, Chris, just out of curiosity, what sort of laptop did you have back then? Was it like an IBM?
Let me guess. I'll put out one. Toshiba.
no, actually, I think it was an Epson, and it might have been like a 486.
Oh, okay.
Let me think back a little bit on this.
He had a tadpole.
I think it was like a 486 at the time, because not only did I have that laptop at the time, but I also had traded a 486 desktop for a 1984 Pontiac Fiero. And so I got the better end of that deal because I drove that car for like 5 years. And I used to drive it around, and it had my email address on the back of it that said militant@fastq.com. That used to be my other handle. I forgot about that.
We're going to get back to your Fiero because let's benchmark that, okay? Because I have a really funny Fiero story involving DEF CON. Which we really probably should tell. Nick, how did we meet?
Oh, wow. So back in the end of the .com era, I was running a systems and tools team at this company that was building, internet service provider and data center stuff around like Asia Pac, right? And I was like in this desperate need to like find, competent people. There were just so many projects and stuff on the table, and everybody I was looking at I was like, they can't do this damn job. And the great Bill McCauley, who I have to just call out, the great Bill McCauley, rest in peace, Bill, who worked with us, just started recommending people that he knew, and Cyan was one of those people. So the first time I met Cyan was in a conference room when I was interviewing her for a position. And
it wasn't that position, though. It was for a different one.
It was for a different one. And I just, yeah, that's right. Wow, I forgot that.
I applied for an IT job.
Yeah, you applied for an IT job. And now, I don't want to sound like an arrogant prick, even though I am. But I've interviewed like 300 or 400 people easily over the course of like my career, and this was very early on in with all of that. And I wind up in this interview room with Cyan, who's interviewing for this IT job and whatnot, and I just start going through my questions and stuff like that. And I'm gonna have her tell the story that she told me because she's gonna know the one. But it's the only time ever that I've been in an interview, and 15 minutes in, I was like, hired. Like we talked for about an hour, like you normally do, but like 15 minutes in, I'm just like, hired. It was just like done. And that's actually how we met. And I'll have her tell the story that she told me. But the thing is from that point on, Cyan saved my ass countless times. And we just basically became really close friends over the course of working with each other. And I will blatantly say I actually wound up in this awkward situation where I sort of fell in love with Cyan when she was working for me.
Awkward.
And I had awkward, and I had to deal with that. But it was cool. I think
Which
we worked
can't
out.
happen today, Nick.
Well, no.
I mean, rattle.
Well, Well,
You
actually,
can't love your coworkers,
There's a
Nick.
whole nother discussion there.
not allowed.
Because there's a whole nother discussion there,
Nick,
right?
you're-
Because I'm
Nick, you're so canceled.
no. I think there's a big lesson here,
He's
right?
pre-canceled, remember?
No, I think there's actually a big lesson here that's worth discussing. I don't want to go in depth with it. Is sometimes you will wind up in situations where you wind up having deep emotional connections with like coworkers and stuff like that, and you have to handle that in a appropriate way. Sometimes you can have feelings for somebody, but there's no way you can express them. There's nothing you can really do about that because you have to respect the people that you work with. I'm very adamant about that. I'm proud of the fact that I can, raise my hand and say that I have managed to never do anything screwed up with any of the female people that have worked for me. In fact, when the whole Me Too thing started, I actually reached out to Cyan. I'm just like, I just want to know, did I ever screw up?
It was really funny because I get this message and it's like, I really hope I didn't cross any lines. And, this whole Me Too thing has made me think, like, who did I possibly, who could I have done that to? Was it you? Are you okay? Did I cross a line? I was like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I'm like, we're fine.
Yeah. No, but we just became really close over the course of working with each other,
Yeah.
and we've been friends ever since. And I mean that's cool. That's one of the things. I mean, there's a number of people that I've worked with over the years that have become just incredibly close friends. Like when you're like in the pits with somebody and you're like running through the foxholes and dealing with stuff, you develop some really tight bonds. And I'm really happy to say that there are so many people I've worked with over the years that it's like you get to this point where it almost transcends friend status and you're like into like brother sister kind of status. And so that's kind of the story of how we met. But I want you to tell the story. You probably told the story a gazillion times. You at college with the Unix book.
Extreme Internet.
What's that?
Extreme Internet, the Lee Burton story. You guys want to hear it again?
Sure.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I think it's a great story. I still laugh when I think about it.
I'm not sure that we've shared it on the podcast.
Yeah,
so
I don't
go
think
for
we've
it.
shared it on the
No.
podcast, so I'll go ahead and talk about it. So I worked at this place called Extreme Internet where I met Jessica.
Mm.
This is Chris's wife, actually, which hopefully we'll have her on at some point. Anyway, so I worked at this place, and I was hired to be the manager of tech support there for dial-up. And
What a hellish job. I've done that before.
yeah, it's like, have you rebooted your computer? That was pretty much the number one thing we would ask. And then eventually DSL, ISDN, like FRAC T1 type stuff. But anyway, I would, in between calls, I was bored and I would sit there and register domain names. And back at the time when I did this, they were free. So I would just sit there and register them like everything. And I would just...
Oh, this isn't even the story I was thinking of. I was
Yeah,
thinking of Control C.
No, I'm going to get to that.
Oh, okay.
It's part of the story.
I'm sorry.
You're thinking of the other story, which we're not going to talk about.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I bought a whole bunch of domains. And this guy that was the co-owner of the company, Lee Burton, he came up to me one day and he like threw this book in front of me and it like plops down. And he's like, "You're way too smart to be sitting here registering domains all day." And I was like, how do you know I'm registering domains? Like what the hell? And I was like, he's looking over my shoulder and he's like, "Well, if you read that book, you'll figure it out." And he's like, "You'll know how." And I was like, weird, freaky. So I put the book aside, and I had all this attitude about it. I was like, I'm not reading that damn book.
Okay, boomer.
Yeah, okay, boomer. Exactly. Okay, .com boomer. We're .com boomers, by the way, just FYI.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, at some point I got bored enough that I was like, I'm going to read it. So I open it up to the first page, second page, third page, get to the 8th page. It's like literally 8 pages into this book. And I thought it was the first page. I think I even told you in my interview it was the first page. It was like the 8th page.
If I recall, you said like 3rd page, 4th page,
Yeah,
whatever.
it was early.
Whatever.
Anyway, I downloaded the book recently and I found it. But anyway, there was this whole like chapter on, like how important root is and the importance of it and how you should be careful. And one of the things it talks about being careful with were shell escapes. And so I was like, what do we, and it basically said, if you run any script as root, if you were to escape out of it, you'll have root. And I was like, what do we have that maybe has root permissions that I'm like, oh, probably the password script that Lee wrote, where like I'm changing users' passwords is probably, and I didn't at the time know how to look at permissions or anything. And so I did it, and then I was like, now what? And then I was just like, had to figure out, I had to read a little bit more to figure out how to type who am I? And it says root. And I was like, oh, no way. This is awesome. And I'm like, well, the only logical next thing to do is to change the password. Right? Right?
If you want people to know you were there.
Yeah.
Now keep in mind, this is the point in the interview where I'm like, hired.
So I changed the password, and then I gleefully run into his office. And I'm like, I have the password to your root account. And he's like, no, you don't. And I was like, no, I really do. And he's like, And I'm like, that book is amazing, dude. That book is so good. And he's like, oh, I'm glad you like it, but I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, try to log in. I'm like, try. And he couldn't log in. And so I was like, here's your password, dude. And well, he said hired, basically. So he told me, he's like, you know what? Go grab your chair, drag it in here. You now work in here. And I was like, what? And he's like, welcome to being a junior sysadmin. And I was like, fuck. Like, also, it went from like $8 to $13 an hour. It was pretty awesome at the time. But that's my big break, actually. I would say my biggest break was meeting Chris Collins. And I know every time I say that, you're kind of like, whatever, dude.
Pretty much.
But it's really true. The reason why is Chris, I love to embarrass you all the time, but Chris is one of these people that, like, believes that anybody can do anything. And so, like, when I started getting into computers and I started, like, doing things, like, he was always just supportive and never, like, you can't do this. I would go over to these hacking sessions you would have at your house. I was always welcome. It was never like, she's a girl, she's got cooties, or whatever. But every now and then, though, you would tie me up and put me inside sleeping bags and shove frozen meatballs down them.
We did do this. Yes.
And why did you do that?
I can't remember why we did this. I mean,
Usually it was like the LSD or something like that, right?
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, I don't know. But that could be incriminating. Remember, that was the rule.
Statute of limitations.
Yeah, we don't know anything about that.
7 years.
That's a hacking group, right? Okay, anyway, go on.
I can't really remember like what we were doing that night, but yeah, I definitely do remember there was this meatball thing. Yeah.
Well, there was something with you and your brother. So I used to really like wrestling, and I'd always lose. You and Aaron, because I thought I was tougher than I was.
I think that might have been like, yeah, you did something, and then it escalated
into a tickle war,
yeah.
which escalated to me being like tied up with bungee cords, put inside of a sleeping bag. And then for whatever reason, I don't know where they got this idea. The deep freeze was next to your room.
Yeah.
And so you like grabbed a bunch of meatballs, shoved them in the sleeping bag, and then you forced me to sit there and watch TV shows. That was the part that was really fun. You're like, watch the show, Cyan. Watch them.
Was it more anime?
No, it was Spawn at the time, which I actually really like Spawn, but I didn't want to tell you I really like Spawn because you were trying to force me to watch something I didn't like.
Right, you got pretty heavy into collecting all the Spawn figures.
I was crazy about the Spawn stuff.
But yeah, I think my view on teaching people tech was that if you can read a book, do you really have to go to school to have someone do that for you? I mean, like, this is something that's pretty accessible.
Yeah, well, on top of it, if you work in tech, you're constantly having to educate yourself if you're going to advance. I mean, you
didn't go to school for tech, right?
No, I went to school for communications, specifically recording industry management. That's what I went to school for.
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting because a lot of people are so wowed when I tell them I'm self-taught. And I'm like, all my friends are self-taught. Like, that's not.
Well, yeah, like at the point where we were kind of coming into this, if you were interested in computers and you went to any given college and said, I'm really interested in computers and this, this internet thing I heard about and whatever, and like, oh, well, you can sign up over here and learn how to code C++.
Visual Basic.
And Visual Basic and stuff. And everybody just, I remember I looked at it and I was like, this sounds like it sucks. Like, I remember like reading over the curriculum at like several different schools and just being like, this is not anything I am even remotely interested in. I'm not interested in like going to a bank and like coding some kind of like back-end processing system or something. Like, that's not what's, the cool thing to me. The cool thing is like using all this new stuff to communicate. So like almost everybody I know that's roughly our age that got into this, their college was like the BBS scene or IRC or something like that, like, or the hacking cons and things like that's where we got our education from. I mean, I'm in a weird way, I'm a little bit jealous of some of the kids coming out of high school right now, because like there's so many places you can go and like learn hardcore infosec and hardcore like networking stuff, like all this stuff that we were like totally interested in at the time. Right now, you can go to college for it.
hardware stuff.
I mean,
That's insane.
at that time, you really
They're so
couldn't
lucky, these kids.
learn any of this stuff in a university. You could learn computer theory, but you wouldn't be able to actually learn how to be like a sysadmin.
Yeah.
Or,
Dude,
and,
these
you know,
kids
and I
these
also,
days have WYSIWYG programming. Like, what the?
Yeah, well, one of the things that keeps coming up in many discussions I've had recently is how like so many people that are in our age range now, like have like backgrounds in some type of music stuff. Like there's a huge number of people in like the tech and particularly the infosec community that have music backgrounds, degrees in music or whatever. It's just a interesting thing.
You know what's interesting to me about security too, by the way, is that now there's all these sandboxes they can play in that simulate every environment that you could possibly imagine. So
Yeah, and back in the day, we just
have
broke
to
the
break
law.
into things for the most part.
First time I got
But we had to break the law.
Yeah, first time I was on the internet, technically it was probably a felony.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I've
for
committed
me.
many felonies,
oh yeah, no, definitely.
just not charged for them.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, though, is like you'll like be talking to like law enforcement people and like, let me tell you a story, and you tell them the story and they just laugh now. But the same thing, if you did it now, you're going to jail.
well, we're from the state where the first computer crimes division was formed.
Yeah.
One of our-
Operation Sun Devil.
Yeah.
Yep.
We have friends that were
Not treated nicely.
recipients of those investigations, and
Got to wear house arrest ankle
Mhm.
thingies.
so one thing that I've noticed though is in Arizona where I'm from, like I could proudly tell people that I was like a self-taught computer engineer. I feel like it's harder to actually admit that in the Bay Area.
Why is that?
I'm not actually sure. It seems like it's frowned upon even more here than it was where I came from, and it was something I was proud of back in Arizona.
I think that might be a story you tell yourself because there's so many accredited people here who are out of Stanford, MIT,
Yeah.
etc., that you're surrounded by them and it probably feels uncomfortable because I felt that way when I first came here too. But when you tell people like what you've accomplished with no college degree, they're almost always floored, trust me. And you're 4 or 5 years ahead of them
Mhm.
because
Well, one thing, I don't like the term self-taught, because when I actually think about how I learned all this stuff, I don't know what the right term would be, but it's more like community taught. Because I can think of several people that have been instrumental in teaching me things over the years, and not like sitting down and lecturing me, but like, hey, we worked on a project together or something like that, and like learned a lot. So like at one point I was like considered this like firewall ninja guru type, right? I learned almost everything I know about firewalls from Decius, stuff like that.
Decius, aha,
Uh-huh.
Now,
Decius, nice.
talking about
I know who
being-
you're talking about.
Yeah.
Talking about being self-taught, Chris, we saw a comment on Twitter saying as much, and they're just wondering what made you open a terminal for the first time, and why did you continue to educate yourself?
Sure. So growing
For the
up,
ladies.
growing up, my mom was always in like management positions in business, and so there was always a home PC, like an x86, and I was never really interested in it. I mean, I played games maybe occasionally, but like then my interest would like wane pretty quickly. But Christmas, when I was like about 13, I got a 2400 baud modem as a present, and I didn't even know what a modem was yet. But I unboxed it, realized it needed to be like installed in this computer, and I was grounded, and so like grounded a lot during this period. And once I found out I could like escape my house through that modem, and like call up all these BBSs, I was like, I'm not grounded anymore. And so, and then once I like learned what the content was on these like BBSs, where you could like learn about how to make, you know, how to hack into other computers and how to like get free software, how to make bombs.
I was going to make the how to make bombs joke.
Yeah, I mean, it had everything on there, and that there was like this.
Well, I mean, to be fair, that's the bread and butter in the middle of the country. That's what you learn when you're a teenager.
Yeah.
Well, now if you read How to Make Bombs, you get
Oh, come
swatted.
on. We all had.
Mhm.
There's been a generational change.
Yeah,
It
it's
has
been a
happened.
huge change.
Yeah.
I mean, things that I did in high school, I would definitely, never see the light of day. I mean, a kid drank some of my pool acid one time when I was making a bomb, and yeah,
Raise your hand if you had Anarchist Cookbook and James Portman's
Oh,
James
Yeah,
come
Bond.
on.
I
That
think
was
that's
like a,
everybody in
that was
here.
like a sign. It's like
You
you
have-
walked.
you have
It's like
to.
you walked out of
It's-
high
it's
school
a
and
rite
some
of
dude on the
passage.
street would practically hand it to you, like, "Hey, you need to have this."
Like the Mormon church.
It's a rite of passage.
absolutely. I mean, cracking those kinds of texts open that weren't easily available at the library, like was very like liberating. It was like, wow, this information really does want to be free. It wants to be
I'm-
downloaded onto my computer now.
I'm proud to say that those books were printed in Arkansas.
Oh, awesome.
Really?
Yeah, down in El Dorado, Arkansas. There's a little independent press or little bookmaker
So,
or publisher that would make them.
what was the question?
What about producing milk at your creamery? Or
Yeah. Do you have a creamery?
What?
No.
Okay. Do you
But
want
my house used to be a creamery back in the day, like 100 years ago.
Why am I feeling there's some kind of inside joke there that you're just not wanting to tell us?
Somebody knows about Hacker Farms, which is our compound located somewhere in Oakland,
and it
California.
used to sell cream back in the
Mhm.
day.
And repair milk trucks.
But he's never going to have cows there.
another question was, do you actually remember the last 5 Burning Man sessions or festivals?
Festivals.
How would you forget?
Well,
I can give you a few reasons.
yeah, I mean, I've been to 15 Burning Man, so now it just feels like I've lived in this city for 15 weeks, and so it kind of gets a little bit blurry.
I've yet to beat a Burning Man, actually.
We got to fix that.
Yeah, I've yet to beat Burning Man.
I used to hate it.
I know like at least 5 or 6 people that have had camps for like years there, right? But I've never gone. It's just always something has always gone wrong. That has diverted me from Burning Man. Like there's some mystical force that has prevented me from going to Burning Man.
Yeah, for me, it was always way too many people liked it. And so therefore, I figured it couldn't be good.
I
And so I
always
was like,
kind of
there's no way
thought
I'm
that
going to
one
that
seemed
thing. There's
pretty
way too
cool.
many people who like it.
I always
like-
thought it seemed cool. I will say.
And so I refused to go. And then someone just gave me a ticket. And so I just went. And I was like, whoa, this is amazing. I'm such a dumbass.
You know that
It's really
it always
cool.
actually seemed cool to me because it had that temporary autonomous zone quality.
You're such a conformist. It just took a free ticket.
I know. I conformed. I'm such a herd person.
hmm
Should I really address all of those?
No, you don't have to.
you
You can
don't
only
have
address what
to.
you want. Like, let's talk about your hot peppers, though, because I actually think like you have this crazy passion for hot peppers. Where
Yeah.
where
Oh,
did that
that's
come
cool.
about, and why? And
So, I mean, back in Arizona, I mean, I had a pretty nice garden, and yeah, one of the centerpieces was to grow as many peppers as I could, along with as many tomatoes, because there's nothing like a homegrown tomato. What was John Dever say? 2 things in life money can't buy. That's true love and homegrown tomatoes.
learn something every day.
Anyways,
Was it John Denver?
I think it's John Denver.
Oh, okay.
It was
Anyways,
Willie Nelson.
no, I don't think it is.
No, Willie Nelson would have said
About-
something else.
about
I'm pretty
weed.
sure of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I grew a lot of peppers there, and I pickled a lot of them there. And then when I came to Oakland and moved in my concrete jungle. We started like watching the Hot Ones show probably before I moved here because it's like 10 seasons in now. And so yeah, I started learning about the Carolina Reaper, which like I couldn't believe that it was as hot as it was. And once I really tried it for the first time, I had to grow my own because I wanted more seeds so that I could make everybody else grow them. So yeah, now we have a forest of like crazy reapers and scorpions, and yeah, there's a lot of hot peppers growing at Hacker Farms right now,
Yeah,
That is cool.
You know, it's really funny. I just had a memory.
and hot sauces.
I just had a memory. It just
Mm.
came to me. It
Mhm.
involves you. The first time I ever had sushi, you took me to a sushi restaurant.
Oh yeah, I'm a dick.
You're such a dick.
Yeah.
And so we were we were having sushi, and I'm already nervous about this because like it's all this weird stuff, and he's like ordering octopus and everything, and then at some point there's like a spoon of this green stuff, and he's like, "Taste this, it tastes great."
Oh boy.
Yeah, and shoves like a whole spoon of wasabi in my mouth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a nice guy.
Your next 5
It's
minutes
endearing.
was fun.
It's endearing, Chris.
Mhm.
I know that feeling because when I was like in high school, I worked in this place in Belmar, New Jersey called Hell's Kitchen. It was like a kind of gourmet Tex-Mex place, small place, and just made like what you'd expect, but every hot sauce on the planet. Like if there was a hot sauce in existence, we had it there, and all kinds of weird stuff that you're not typically supposed to have, like the uh, uh, I probably shouldn't say incriminating, but we would literally just kind of sit around and try to out hot each other in terms of like okay, all three of us, let's try this, and and we just kind of go and try to basically out hot each other. That's what we used to call it. And oh my god,
Is there
oh,
CBD hot sauce? There's
There-
CBD
there
everything now,
probably
right?
is, but you don't need it. I mean, you get such a crazy
You already
high
get
from.
you already get a euphoric kind of high from anything that's super hot.
I mean,
Huh.
like Butchaloka.
that's really the draw.
hotter.
It's what it's doing
Oh,
to my
so I've
body.
really gotten to the root of this.
It's a drug for me. It is a drug.
Huh.
So
I didn't think about it that
He's
way.
just addicted to
Hmm.
capsaicin.
I
So-
really am. I really don't know what my life would be like if.
Wait, how do you capsaicin?
Capsaicin.
capsaicin. Yeah,
Capsaicin.
they got this.
It's kind of a pain reliever.
Mhm.
So it's good for joint pain and everything.
Yeah, we had this stuff where this one guy had figured out how to distill the capsaicin down into like this powder. It's like a mushy powder, and 1 grain of this stuff would destroy you. It was like it was actually technically like classified as a poison, so we weren't supposed to have it. 1 grain of it would just like destroy you. But yeah,
Well, a lot of people listening to this podcast, I have a feeling that several podcasts we're going to do are going to have to be doing with Doomsday Prepping.
Yeah, of course.
So sorry to switch the gears.
oh, we can get to that.
But I think that I have
Oh,
two
since
people
I have
here.
you here, you should tell our one of our good old Hong Kong stories.
Which one?
How about the time we basically found ourselves on the street in Hong Kong with no cell phones and nothing but our suitcases, no laptops, no nothing, basically.
Are you
stripped
sure you want me to talk
volunteer.
about this?
I thought it was one of the most funny things that's ever happened.
So-
Especially because most people would consider it a disastrous situation to just basically find yourself in the streets of Hong Kong with nothing but a suitcase and a few changes of clothes and like
So-
and we actually had fun.
So I used to be very poor. And when you're very poor and you're with your friends, you find things to do.
Inexpensive things to do.
Yeah, and I think Chris he always reminds me of this and brings me back down to earth. And he's like, Cyan, don't forget where you came from and like how you could do so much with so little. Well, we were in that situation in Hong Kong. We found ourselves without a job one day and kicked out of
Quite
our
suddenly.
apartments quite suddenly. Like literally they came in, shut the lights off, took our laptops.
In Japan.
No, Hong
No,
Kong.
it's
Hong
Hong
Kong.
Kong.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, in Hong Kong. And my friend Lucas had come out to stay with us because he thought he would have a free apartment. And he was also kicked out of the apartment. And then he also lost his job at another company, like the next day. But my idea of a good time was covering Nick with toothpaste.
I remember that. Oh my god, I haven't thought about that since then. Yeah.
What, while he was asleep?
No, he was awake.
No,
so it was
we were-
we were in a hotel and we were like trying to figure out what to do because we had no money. Like we were like planning every meal, everything. It's like not like we could go out really partying.
Yeah, because because that's one thing that's easy. Like forget how much some of this stuff has changed. It's not like we were completely broke, but we couldn't access anything that we had.
It was not that
It
we were
was-
broke. It's mostly just that
We couldn't
had-
access it.
Rent was really expensive here
Yeah.
in San Francisco, and we were watching basically our future slip away from us, and we weren't sure if we were going to be able to be employed because that was when all of the jobs were just
Everything
like,
went away.
everything
I
went
mean,
away.
We all went from like rolling really well, like making good money, living well, to like homeless in like 6 months.
Yeah.
Or at least I was homeless.
I think
in
people
6
don't
months.
realize like there's not a lot of institutional knowledge or memory of that period of time, but like the .com explosion, like everything just imploded and exploded, and there were
I
U-Haul
made it through
trucks.
unscathed.
Yeah, lucky you. There were U-Haul trucks up and down the street. There were parties, what they call them pink slip parties, where people were partying because they just lost their jobs. People were leaving in droves. Well, it happened to us. And
Only we were in Hong Kong at the time.
Yeah, we were in Hong Kong. Some of us had tickets back, some didn't. Anyway, but one evening, we were just sitting around. We weren't sure what to do, and I was like, Nick, can I cover you in toothpaste?
Of course, I said yes.
He's like, yes, you can cover me in toothpaste. And I have pictures of this. Did you know that?
You have pictures of
I
that?
have pictures of you covered in toothpaste.
I want to see that.
I drew a happy face, and then like,
Yeah, because
it was a lot of fun.
I remember it was either who was it? One of our friends was able to get a hotel because we all got one of the things that was funny is we all got kicked out of the apartments, but we all got kicked out of the apartments separately, like not as a group. So each one of us wound up on the street kind of individually. And the thing that was neat is all of us were kind of serious operators. We knew what we were doing. So it's just kind of like, oh, I'm going to walk down the street here, walk in here, get a cell phone, temporary card, blah, blah, blah. I remember that dude's number because that was the point in time where you actually remembered phone numbers and like, bam, hey, can I come over, crash your play? We just figured it all out. And all of a sudden we all just wind up in the same place. One of our friends gets a hotel room. We just kind of figured it all out. And I remember that night clearly because it was one of those times where in all regards, you should have been freaking out. But we weren't. We were just basically like having fun and kind of partying and blowing off steam a little bit. And like, it might sound like that was an odd thing. Hey, can I cover you in toothpaste? But man, if I listed off all the odd things we did during that period of time, you wouldn't believe
Lucas
me.
was pissed off at me because I left him there with you.
Oh God. I adore Lucas. I actually really like him. But I remember during that period of time, he was like pissing me off so much.
And you were pissing him off a lot too.
I know. I mean, like, because I remember, because he was vegan, right?
Oh yeah.
And Hong Kong was not an easy place to be vegan at that point in time. It just wasn't. And wherever we were hanging out with like Lucas, there were like 4 restaurants that we could eat at without having to. There were 2 we could eat at without literally having to travel all the way into like Kowloon to like where the monks and stuff were.
Because like Hong Kong, highest per capita meat consumption per person in the world.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Well, it fits. So, so like the whole time, and I'm like, I'm kind of a foodie, I mean, like not like some
Lucas is now
ridiculous
too.
foodie.
He's also a wine snob.
Oh, okay. I mean, it fits, but oh man, I don't get me wrong. I really like Lucas. He's a really cool dude. But at that period in time, I wanted to strangle him like every moment. It was just killing me.
So the 2 restaurants were the Hard Rock Cafe because they had some sort of plant-based burger thing
Probably
and French
tater
fries.
tots
Yeah, French fries. Exactly. You know, Chris.
Yeah, he lived on French fries.
You realize,
He
you
was
do
a
realize,
French
Nick,
fry vegan at that time.
Rattle, sorry. You experienced it for like maybe a couple of weeks. Chris and I have experienced it for a lifetime. The good news about Lucas is branched out. Like, he eats salads and all sorts of stuff. When I met him, all he ate was Caesar salad and pizza. That was it. Maybe a bagel every now and then.
And French fries.
And French fries. Always French fries.
Yeah.
Wait, pizza has cheese.
Well, he started out vegetarian.
It was
then
vegetarian.
became vegan.
It was vegan
So
pizza
imagine
for a long
going
time.
from like that to even more restricted. Like what?
And again, you're in a meat market. That's the Hong Kong.
Literally.
Yeah.
Pretty
I
much
mean,
a meat market. Yeah.
Fish is vegetarian there, so.
Yeah. We ran into a lot of that, which is like, so there was a funny story with. Can I tell a funny Lucas story?
Sure.
We're gonna have Lucas on at some point. Lucas,
He's probably not listening, so.
Oh, he'll listen. Especially if he knows he's on. I mean, come on. We're talking about him. His ears are burning right now. Anyway, so Lucas was vegan, and so we went out to that island. Do you remember we went to an island with our
Oh
coworkers?
yeah, that was great.
And it was like it was covered in dogs, and then like their specialty was fish.
Yeah, no, it was one of the fishing villages.
Yeah.
And
So we took Lucas
basically,
there.
and yeah, the way that place worked was during the day, it was where all the boats would be coming back into with all their all the fish they caught, and then during night they clean everything up, and they basically just put out tables, and you could go into the markets and pick and pick out the fish that literally were caught in the morning. And they had all these like really great chefs there, and they would just whip up anything you want, and you could basically just
The key word here though is fish.
fish.
Yeah, not vegan.
Okay.
Right. So we take Lucas.
Pescatarian or something, right?
Yeah, so we take Lucas there, and he's like, "Is there anything here I can eat?" And so at some point, someone that we're with speaks Cantonese, and they like convince them that he's a Buddhist monk. You remember that?
I vaguely.
Yeah, and so he becomes a Buddhist monk, and he had like white dreadlocks then. like
Yeah.
these crazy white
Yeah.
dreadlocks. And so they send someone out on a boat to another island to get Lucas vegetables. And like make this very special meal just for him because he's like this monk. And so he gets the stuff afterwards and he like asks somebody, I forget who it was.
Did we
someone-
like get him a robe or something?
No, but they bought it or they tried to buy it. I'm not really sure. But anyway, they come back and they're like, you know, kind of bowing to him and giving them the stuff and speaking in Cantonese. And then somebody tells us, they're like, oh yeah, they're really pleased to have you here. They're honored that you would come. They went and got you these vegetables from a whole other island. Okay? Anyway, love you, Lucas. Always.
Love you too, Lucas. But yeah, I wanted to strangle you back then.
He wanted to strangle you too,
I know.
but mostly because you rattle on.
Okay, fair enough.
That's the only reason.
Fair enough.
why.
I think it's fair on both sides.
I think you guys went to a rave.
Oh yeah. I remember. I do remember that rave. Wow, raves in Hong Kong were weird. I went to several of those. But yeah, we did that. You weren't at that?
No, I went home. I went home with John and I think Tom. I think Tom was on the same plane with me.
Okay, yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Because yeah, you guys had a different ticket class than I did, and you guys needed to close out your apartments quicker. Or,
I was
no,
kicked
you
out of my
needed to close
apartment in
it.
24 hours. It was like, you're out.
Oh yeah, no, I think yeah, if I recall, like me and Tom and Dag held on for about 3 months, I think, and then after like September 11th and whatnot, it was just like that's it. We got to shut everything down and get out of here. We can't afford this, and the world is falling apart. It's time to go.
Hmm.
I think that's the way the timing worked out for
So
us.
did they wait until the end of the month and say, "Oh, by the way, we can't pay this next month"?
Oh, no.
Or
We were literally at our desk at work, and this woman came in, and she was like, turn in your laptops, turn in your pagers, turn in your phones. You're
Yeah.
gone. You know, all the corporate apartments, that you're in them, you're out of them by tomorrow.
oh, it's just
Yeah.
a corporate one. It wasn't a
and
private
by the way,
apartment?
please don't tell anyone in the United States. Which, of course, you know,
Yeah, well,
we
there's
told
a
everyone
whole backstory
in
there.
California.
There's a whole backstory to that I'm not sure if you know. But me and Tom had negotiated exit terms for everybody. We had negotiated exit terms, and because of various confidentiality agreements, I can't say what those are. But we had negotiated everybody's exit terms because we knew it was coming. We saw the writing on the wall and everything.
But you guys were good at hiding it from me.
Yeah, well, we had to. We didn't have a choice.
Well, Tom claims he told me, but he didn't. Trust me. Like,
Well, dude, I don't
I
think we
had
were,
no idea.
I don't think we were allowed to. I mean, this is so long ago. I'm sure there's all kinds of details I don't
Meh.
remember get wrong. But we had negotiated exit terms. But when the fan finally got hit by the proverbial shit, none of the exit terms were followed. We literally were frog walked out. It was just like goodbye. And the same woman who was the one who did it was the one that I negotiated the exit terms with.
I remember her being German. Was she German?
I can't remember.
Because for some reason in my memory, she's German. She came in, she's like, Tony in your, what, how do you do it? Tony in your lap. You have 15 minutes to turn in your the laptops. I don't know how to.
Schnell.
All my German friends are like, shut
laptops,
up.
cell phones, access cards, all that stuff,
Yeah.
and they went through our apartments and everything,
Yeah.
too beforehand, and like
And my
searched
stupid
it
ass
for
brought a whole
stuff.
suitcase full of Harry Potter books. Because I thought for sure there was not going to be any English books in Hong Kong. So I brought a whole suitcase because we weren't supposed to come back for like many, many months.
Yeah, we were supposed to be out there that run, if I recall, we were supposed to be out there for about 6 months.
Yeah. And so I had no clothes and a suitcase of books
Yeah.
because I thought that was cool.
But
and guess what? I got to lug around.
Well, I stayed out there for like a month. I stayed out there for almost 2 months after that. I got an apartment. And I got a room in an apartment with some of the other folks that had basically gotten laid off. And I just said, I thought at the time that like, oh yeah, I got this experience bouncing back and forth between all these different countries. There's no way I can't monetize that experience and find another job, because I really wanted to get another job at the time where I was bouncing back and forth between Hong Kong and San Francisco, because I just love both those cities so much. I mean, I love San Francisco, I love Hong Kong, and I love bouncing back and forth between the two of those because it was just, two radically different environments, two radically different cultures. And I just loved it. So that's what I was trying to do. But no, there were no jobs. There were no jobs anywhere. And after 2 months, I come back and then, September 11th and every other damn thing. And that was when me and Tom started meme streams, like, as that was all going down. We kept having all these hopes that we were going to be able to turn everything around. And then, 6 months homeless, living out of the back of my car.
Yeah.
In a weird way, at the time I was kind of miserable, but I look back at it, it's one of the best times of my life because we pulled through everything. We somehow managed to get through it all.
I remember I kept trying to get you to sell that car, and you're like, Cyan, no, you don't understand.
My
Like,
house.
yeah, like I have to have this car, and I'm like, well, the car's got to be worth something, and you could pay rent with it. And you're like, nope, not selling this
Nope.
car, not selling it. Nope.
I lived out of the back. It was Chevy Blazer. I just kind of set up the back of it so that, it was comfy to sleep in and everything. And I had what I needed. Later, because after that, I went back to my ancestral homeland of New Jersey. And the other thing about that card, I remember telling me one of the many reasons you're telling me something. No license plates. I didn't have a driver's license. I just had a car. I mean, literally, it didn't have license plates, and I did not have a valid driver's license. But I'm cruising all over the valley, doing whatever I need to do. The kind of ballsy crap that we did back then is amazing.
Chris and I have some ballsy crap stories.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll probably get to Doomsday Prepping in the next episode, but I want to tell a Fiero story. Since we're talking about cars, what do you want to talk
You
about?
got 5 minutes.
I've got 5 minutes to tell. I can't tell the Fiero story in 5 minutes.
We can take a slight break and split it up. I know you have to get to a call real quick, so we can go ahead and pause. And then
Or we can kick him out and tell stories behind his back.
There you go.
All right.
I'm okay with that.
Later.
Later.
All right, you get out. Okay, you tell the Fiero story, and then we'll tell the
Behind his back?
Yeah. Why
What?
not? Yeah.
I can't tell Chris's Fiero story behind his back. You're
Okay.
at peace with it?
Okay. Well, we could also just tell one of the old drive-in story or something if you want.
Well, I was gonna-
There's a lot of those.
There's a lot of those.
I was going to talk about the first time I went to DEF CON.
Okay, we'll pivot until off Chris stories until Chris gets back. That seems fair. As much as it does seem fun to tell stories behind his back, it's probably fair if we wait.
Yeah, we may as well. We can probably knock out a lot in 20 minutes for Doomsday stuff, or should we just wait? I don't know.
Well, I mean,
What do you want to do?
Chris is also into Doomsday stuff.
I know.
right?
I don't want to
So,
leave him out of Doomsday
Yeah,
because he
it's-
loves
it's
Doomsday
fun.
stuff. It's like his jam.
Yeah.
Okay, what's one that we got?
Plus, he has a
You and me, or you, me, and Tom. We can talk about Tom behind his back because he's not here.
Yeah, let's talk about Tom behind his back.
Are
I
you
think we
want-
should get Constantine on this.
Are you wanting to do just a totally different episode, and then we can
We
stop?
could do like
this?
a tiny little something. I don't know.
We can record two if you'll have time to. We'll have to interchange. But,
I just have to be at my basketball game at 7:30.
okay, so we've got 2 hours until then,
Yeah, it's plenty of time.
so we can just record like a whole another podcast or just whatever. We can coordinate.
Okay.
I'm sure everybody listening loves how we're just kind of figuring out what we're doing on the podcast.
We always do that.
It's honesty, radical transparency. I
Yeah,
approve.
right.
Yeah, so we before we do our podcast, we spend like 5 minutes like figuring out what we're going to talk
We
about.
don't really do. any
She's
prep.
lying. We didn't spend that much time.
We just roll.
Oh, are we actually recording?
We're still recording.
Oh. I thought we were just shooting the shit.
We are.
We can
All right.
splice these up
Well,
depending on what we're
Lee
doing.
can
if
do
we're
whatever he
recording.
wants with
Yeah.
this. You know, I have a rule that if I say it, and he records it, it goes out. So that way I just don't say what I don't want to say because we also don't have time to be editing shit.
I say it. The NSA records it. It's out.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah, same thing. Absolutely. Well, I went golfing today.
You did.
Yes.
And I'm really proud of you because I saw that you had plenty of sand on your sandwich.
I know. I was really excited because when I put it in the
I
car,
didn't
I
think
even
that you
showed
were-
it
I didn't think
to
you were
my
gonna-
friend who shall not be named. I showed it to them
Mhm.
and said, "Look at all the sand on here. I'm so proud. Lee's gonna be so proud."
No, I didn't think that you would get to have that sort of experience right now because that's the first day that you ever used the sandwich.
Yeah. I hit it, and the person I played with also hit it into the bunker a lot. So
Sweet.
yeah.
Because it's hard enough getting out of. So on a golf course, you have tight lies to where you're.
What is that?
Well, that's when the grass is really, really short.
Okay.
And so then you're trying to get an iron under the ball without hitting it with the front of the blade, the little bottom. because you want to get it up in the air and not going straight.
Do you want to see my ball marker
So let me
today?
get this
Yeah.
straight. We were going to
Check
talk
out my
about
ball marker.
nice. So we're going to talk about Doomsday Prepping, and we wound
Pokemon.
up pivoting over into golf.
No, we're
Something
gonna
about that
we're
seems
saving
strange.
Doomsday Prepping
We're
for
saving
Chris.
Doomsday.
No,
until
I know we're
Chris gets-
saving it. I was saying we're talking about doing that, and we pivoted into golf.
What would
There's
you like to
something
pivot into?
funny about that.
Oh, is there?
What's that?
Oh,
Well, I mean,
you mean if the world comes to an end, we play golf?
Yeah, I mean, okay. What's going to
Mm.
keep you entertained if society falls apart? You're going to have plenty of open space.
Yeah, it's
you
easy
might
to
as well
make
have
a
sport.
hole.
Yeah, just dig a hole.
You could
make your
fashion
own
a
golf.
stick. You could make your own ball.
It started with a bunch of Scotsmen that were herders, and they just started hitting things with their staffs.
I mean, you're making a compelling case here.
Yeah, it's a great sport. It really is.
I mean, I don't have anything against it. I've given golf a shot a few times, and enough to know that like, oh, I have to like dedicate 10 years to this to not suck at it.
it takes
Pool is my game.
it takes a good amount of
pool.
practice.
Oh, that's right. Pool.
I'm not a good pool player, but I really enjoy playing pool. One of the things I love about that game is you can be playing with somebody that is radically better or radically worse than you. The game is still enjoyable. You can still have a nice social conversation over it. You know, the skill level differences don't matter. It's just a really fun game.
Well, and the thing with pool though is it's kind of reliant on your ability to visualize geometry
Yeah,
and be able to outline the paths and the angles and where you're going to hit the ball.
yeah, and
In
you know how
golf-
you use your body.
In
yeah.
golf, it's a lot about repetition and form. So that's what really
well, also
a lot-
just understanding the landscape. And it's
Yeah.
a little bit of geometry.
it's a little bit, yeah. But the big thing in golf is having a repeatable form to where you can have the same amount of energy or know what your strength is and how far you're going to hit it. So it takes it's a little more.
Yeah, there's a
challenging.
lot going on there. Like I
But a-
said,
but a lot of
it's
it's
one of those
form.
things. It takes a lot of time to get good at golf.
So I have hated just about every sport imaginable,
Mhm.
and I have pooped on them all. But somehow I have fallen in love with golf, which I made fun of probably the most. 'Cause it's the one thing you don't want to watch on TV because it's just so boring.
I
No,
never
no,
would
no,
have.
I-
I never would have figured you would have gotten into golf.
Right?
I never
It's
would
weird.
have. I never would have
but-
anticipated.
What do you think I would have gotten into?
That's a good question. I don't know. I always figured you would be one of the ones that would get in like something one of the individual sports like you know running or bicycling or swimming or something like that. That's what I would have figured.
Yeah, I'm not a team player.
Well, no, you actually are a team
I know it's
player.
true. I'm not.
I've been
If
on
other
a team.
people have to like, well, yeah, we work together. It's different. But like, if I'm on a team with someone, I'm probably gonna like miss the ball. I have really bad eye-hand coordination. I'm the one person you don't want on any team sport. Trust me.
you were always the one that was picked last.
But what?
Were you always picked last?
Oh, pick last. I thought you said be classed. I was
No,
like, what?
picked
Yeah, I was
last.
picked last, or not at all.
We're like, we
They're
don't
like,
want
whatever
her.
you do, don't pick her. The ball's gonna come at her. She's gonna say, I've got it.
But I mean,
Don't got it.
the cool thing about golf too is you're not playing on a team, and
Right.
you only play for yourself.
You only play for yourself, and it's actually collaborative yet kind of competitive.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's one of the things. I'm positive I would enjoy golf if I got to the point where I could play with a group and not hold the group back. But like at this point, if I go and play golf with anybody who's decent with golf, I'm going to be the one.
But you
holding
know what?
whole
That's the
group back.
motivating factor to get better. So I mean, that's what kind of drove me to get better.
I've never
because if
had
I
a
went to go
problem
play-
with motivating factors to
Yeah.
get better at something if I want to get
Yeah.
better at it. It's
because
just,
if I did go play with friends, I don't want to be the one that's holding them back and say,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, like every time I swing. So
Yeah,
it
yeah,
kind of motivates
exactly.
you to get better, even on your own time.
yeah, but time commitment. There's an
Enough about
investment
golf.
there. Okay.
What?
I said enough about golf. Moving on.
You were so excited about it
I
a second
know.
ago.
I know, but I don't think Nick's that excited about. We're golfers.
Okay.
Nick's not a golfer, so let's move on.
I have
Let's see.
nothing against golf.
I
It's
know,
just
I
not
know
my
you
thing.
don't. I know you don't. Do you have any embarrassing stories about me?
Oh, well, let me see. Let me think about that.
He's going to be very complimentary and say no, and then he's going to
No,
think
I'm
about it
blanking.
later.
I know I do, but I'm blanking on any of them right now. In the situation where I'm put under pressure, I'm pretty sure I do. Uh,
I was a good employee.
Yeah, no, you were like really solid. And I remember like the first day you showed up to start, I had like the worst chaos going on
Oh
in the
yeah, it was
world.
total
It
total
was
chaos.
total freaking chaos. Like we had just moved from our old offices and our new offices, and I had this one laptop that I had been working out. I can't remember what I was working on, but I had like 2 weeks of work invested on something that was like really important. And, you assume you can leave things in your office. That's a very safe assumption that everybody has. No, all my stuff got stolen. 2 weeks out the window, like whole timeline back. Cyan's, comes in and like anybody starting a job, little bit nervous, all that, and she rolls in. Everything's just complete chaos. And
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 he's like, "Here's a fold-out table.
yeah, here's a
Good luck."
yeah, good luck. And I remember I gave you some kind of project that like
You made me learn about Kickstart.
yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, you're right, man.
I have a weird memory.
Yeah, that's what it was because it
And
was all
package
about machine.
management.
Yeah, it was all about machine builds. Because I remember what my plan was is I was gonna like throw you into the fire on that stuff because it's just like okay, she needs a chance to learn this, and I'm just thinking like okay, I got a week I can throw at this to like give her a chance to like learn these things and stuff, and then we can just kind of move forward. But like there was just all this chaos, and then all of a sudden we're just all completely screwed. And I don't know. My memory of all the specifics from that time period is pretty vague, just because of how long ago it was. But yeah, no, over because Cyan started off on my team, right? And and we were really closely allied with the security team. We did systems and tools, and the security team did like mostly, firewalls, gateways, that kind of stuff at that point period in time. And over the course of like several months, Cyan transitioned into essentially being the project manager between our two teams because we wound up in a situation where the tools team was doing security team work all the time, and we were essentially aiding them. We were almost like we we were doing each other's work. So like if I happened to be in like, Taipei or something and the security team needed something done, I would do it for them and vice versa. If they happen to be, in Seoul or something and I need something done there, they would do it for me. So we just had all this crazy crossover going on. And everybody and Cyan worked well with everybody. You took over the project management for
Hmm.
both teams. So like we had a director on each team that ran the show for each team, and Cyan was literally doing work for all of us. And we coordinate with the network team. It was really cool. We actually had a really good teamwork quality with
It was
that
a lot of
group of
fun.
people. Yeah, we had a lot of fun. I mean, it was we were always under the gun. It was always a ton of pressure, but like we were always partying all the time too, and everything. It was really neat. And I mean, I think that whole crew is still tight.
Yeah.
I mean, John doesn't want to go anywhere near me, but that has nothing to do with anything that happened there. It's a long story. He's a good guy. I miss you, John. Contact me sometime, please. We should be
I
cool.
hooked him up with his wife.
Yeah,
I mean,
his
come
wife
on.
is awesome. She's awesome. But yeah, I still talk to Rusty. I still talk to Randy. Still best friends with Tom. Every so often
Who
I'm
was the
ping
cool guy
Mel.
that sat? So you sat in front of me, and there was a guy off to the right. Was his name Tim or something?
Mel.
Mel. What happened to him?
I last time I talked to him was like 2 or 3 years ago.
Hmm.
But I know he's in good shape. Uh,
What
uh,
about our boss?
Adam.
Hmm.
Adam's doing great. Adam's doing great. I see his stuff on Facebook and stuff all the time. I can't recall the last time I talked to him, but he's doing good. But yeah, everybody from that crew, almost everybody is still in some regard in touch. We might not.
Dagmar.
Dagmar, I actually hung out with Dagmar a few weeks ago. I was out in Nashville for a thing, and which
Does he
by the
still wear
way,
pants that are large enough for a homeless
yes,
family?
yes, he still does. No, Dag's doing really good actually, which is nice to see because he went through some tough times and stuff, but he's doing really good. Uh, he's he's oh sorry, bottle noise. I have this tendency to always fidget with something. But yeah, no, he's doing really good. He finally got into a situation where the people working with him realize, okay, that guy's just slightly autistic. He's not an asshole. He's just slightly autistic. So he finally got himself in a position where, you know, he can do his stuff and be respected the way he should be. It's nice.
The thing I remember about Dagmar was him always being in his room playing like EverQuest or something.
Oh yeah, when he fell into the EverQuest hole.
Yeah.
Well, I remember one of the times I've laughed so hard is we used to carpool all the time because we worked down in like Redwood City and we all lived in San Francisco, so we'd carpool.
And because Nick loved me, he would pick me up out in the sunset, which wasn't at all on the way.
Not even remotely. No, I literally
It's like,
had.
yo, I don't mind
You
the
weren't
extra
the only-
30-minute.
I'm just ribbing you. But
No, you weren't
I
the only
you realize I
person I
didn't
went out of my
realize
way
that.
for.
I didn't realize that until later. I was like, wait, that's not at all on the way.
No, you weren't the only one. I was like a bus at that point in time because I was like the only one that had a car. Because everybody was just like, why would I want to have a car? And the other thing was I had the back cave in my apartment, so I never had to deal with a parking issue. It just really lucked out where I had an SUV I could pack people into, and I had a back cave. I never had to worry about parking, so I was everybody's bus. And the other thing is I love driving. So I never cared. I enjoyed it all. It wasn't a chore for me. But I remember one time we were driving somewhere, and Dagmar was just like ribbing on you, and
Oh yeah, I remember this.
and like you've always come across as like tough and confident and whatnot, but also at that point you were a little like sweeter toward people. No, that's not the right way to put it, but anyway, Dagmar just kind of had you figured as like in girly or whatever, and at one point you just turned to him and very loudly proclaimed, "Eat a big bowl of dick." And it was so funny.
You guys lost it.
It's hard to convey how funny that was just because of the timing of the situation and what was being talked about before. But I will remember that forever because it was so funny. I think I had to literally like stop the car. I was laughing so hard or something.
It was
like
really
that.
funny because I actually was pretty. I mean, I wasn't shy, but I was soft spoken.
Yeah.
And I was very generally kind and wouldn't ever say anything like that at the time.
Yeah.
And something he said just really rubbed me the wrong way, and I was just pissed.
I can't even remember what it is either. But
I was
yeah.
like, eat a bowl of dick.
Yeah.
I think it was a big, massive bowl of dick.
No, I remember it was the tone was just kind of very forceful. Just eat a big bowl of dick, and it was. We all just lost it. Even Dag lost it. We just lost it. I think I had to stop the car.
Oh man.
I mean, it's just one of those you had to be there kind of things. But yeah, it was funny.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
That was really funny. Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
So he was just like a deer in headlights, just couldn't believe what he was hearing, or
Yeah. It's just kind of verbally being punched in the face. That's kind of what happened.
it's like
there.
I would have never imagined she would say that.
Yeah.
So
Not
if we
her.
ever get one of my friends on this podcast, his name is Josh, he can tell you what happens when you call me a bleeder. It was worse than eat a bowl of dick. Let's say that. Every now and then someone will say something to me and I just lose it. I just lose it. It's really rare, but like
It's funny.
It's
As hell
epic,
whenever
though,
it happens.
when it happens.
Whenever it happens, you want to be there. You want to see that. It's great.
Oh my gosh.
It's actually fun reminiscing on that crew. As that was a fun crew. That was a great group. That was a great working group.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
We got a lot done too.
hmm
Like we were pretty effective.
I think what's really cool is
So you all got a job with like the same companies after you got back from Hong Kong, or
no.
No. When we
No.
came back from Hong Kong, all of us were screwed. Cyan was the only one that actually had a job at that point. You were working at that nonprofit at the time.
Oh my god, yeah.
Embarrassing Cyan story. It's not embarrassing at all. But she was working for this nonprofit in Oakland. I don't remember exactly
The
what
Women's Economic Agenda Project.
Yes, yeah, and
just rolls off your tongue.
I know, right?
and you were working with like mostly black folks and stuff, right?
Mhm.
And I remember you got obsessed with the hair weaving stuff.
Oh, yeah. I
And
know where this
then-
is going.
And then one day I meet up with Cyan, and she's got like hair weave dreadlocks, like down like
Oh my God, you were appropriating
hair weave
people's
dreadlocks,
cultures?
colored
I was cultural
yeah,
appropriating.
totally
yeah.
cultural appropriating because Cyan generally has short hair, and then all of a sudden she just walks up with like these weave dreadlocks.
They're like down to
and-
my ass.
Yeah.
They were really long.
They were long, and it was just like one of those times where
Like,
you just
what?
sit there like, what? Wait, what? What did you just do?
Well,
was
how this all came
hilarious.
about was actually my coworkers wanted me to do it. So my coworkers would.
It was a
talk to
good
me.
idea.
Well,
It was funny.
the coolest thing was it taught me how many hours go into their hairstyles, and so I didn't appreciate it until I had to go through it myself. And so I would always compliment them on their hair, and they're like, you know what, you should come over, and we're gonna do your hair, and we'll go pick out the hair. I did the whole thing where I went to the store, picked out we got synthetic hair at the time. I couldn't afford real hair, so I got synthetic hair. And then I went over to one of my coworkers' house, and all of their family was there. It's a whole family affair. And I'm telling you, it took 10 hours to do that.
Wow. Okay.
And it was painful.
Because I remember I hung with that group of folks at one point, all cool folks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was super painful.
It's just because they braid it so tightly, or
it's yeah, it's like part of your scalp is being like pushed up. It's hard to explain. It's just really tight braids. And so yeah, I couldn't keep them very long. I don't even remember, but I only kept them for like a
Like
month.
3 weeks or something.
Yeah,
like that,
3 weeks or something like that, because I was getting massive headaches. And so I started complaining to my coworkers about the massive headaches, and they're like, "Welcome to our world." And I was like, "Holy shit! Like, it's hard to maintain."
There's a good documentary.
hair.
There's a good documentary out there about that right now. It's like called Good Hair or something like that. I think Chris Rock or somebody like that. Maybe.
So are you culturally appropriating hair if you're encouraged to do it?
you can't appropriate any culture. Come on, it's so
Yeah, I mean,
ridiculous.
that's
the only
just
way
like a
culture.
weird.
Yeah, the only way culture progresses is if other people adopt it and then learn from it. That's what you do as a society. So you can't appropriate anything.
Well, I
'cause
remember one time
culture is never just something static and
I
set
was-
in stone.
in this CVS. I think there was a CVS near that place, and I was shopping before I jumped on BART to get back over, because the place I was working at was in Oakland. And this woman came up to me and she said, "For a playa hater, you look awfully good." And I really didn't know what she meant. I was like, I really don't understand. What is a player hater? But anyway, I went back to work and I said it, and everybody just started laughing. And I still don't, to this day, don't know what a player hater is.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of when the cultural appropriation
Do
thing
you know what
comes
it
up.
means?
I'm not exactly.
Playa hater.
You're white.
I mean, I guess player hater is a white person.
The way
For a
I
white
kind of
chick,
look
you
at it,
look good.
yeah, the way I kind of look at it, the whole cultural appropriation thing is it has to do with respect. If you're like doing something that's respectful, that's involving another culture, like you're all cool. If you're doing something that's like making fun of that culture or
I certainly was not
abusing it
making
or
fun
whatever,
of it.
no, you weren't. Yeah, so I wouldn't.
I don't know. I'm kind of.
Those terms are.
I can understand where
weird.
you're coming from, but I also just don't think there should be any boundaries, with very few exceptions. Maybe if there's like some sort of atrocity or something that you don't want to bring up or make fun of, that's okay, i.e. Holocaust.
Right.
But
Yeah,
but I mean, if you're
that's not even about respect.
Don't cosplay as Hitler.
if it's Halloween,
Don't be a player hater.
if it's Halloween and you dress up
Exactly.
as some Indian or
Yeah, it's not.
squaw or whatever, there's nothing wrong.
Oh,
with
that's
that.
one of the great things about Halloween.
but
you get a
then-
free pass for
Yeah.
like so many
well,
things.
Not today.
Not anymore.
Not today.
Well,
because
You
then
cannot
because
dress
you're
up
making
as-
fun of their culture. You're appropriating. Blah blah blah.
Yeah,
It's
you
just
can't
it's
do
just
that.
nonsense. You can't do anything anymore.
Well, that's another
but I
thing.
mean, we
you guys
can do
are
it.
operating on California rules. I'm operating on New York City rules.
Oh yeah, I'm from
We-
Arkansas. We just do whatever. They don't care.
Yeah. I'm coming from this from a New York City perspective,
You don't
and
have to be
it's just
PC.
it's completely different than out
So
here.
what does New York City think about us? I'm curious.
I mean, it's complex. There's definitely differences in the
Because they're considered
attitudes.
elitist too. And
Yeah,
in most
yeah,
of the
we're
nation.
totally considered elitist all over the place. I think the biggest difference, and I've seen this because I've lived out here and I love it out here. I love San Francisco. San Francisco is a deep place in my heart. But New York City is, that's really where my soul is. I'm a Jersey boy from the Jersey Shore, who traveled all over the place and finally plopped down in Manhattan. I always knew I would wind up there. But I'd say the biggest difference is in New York, people are very direct. People are very direct. They're very kind. One of the things that New Yorkers don't get good credit for, actually, is New York is actually the kindest city I've ever lived in. You wouldn't believe the kind of things you see New Yorkers do for each other on a regular basis when anything goes wrong.
Well, recently I saw something where some woman got run over by a car, and like everybody rushed over there and lifted the car up and got
Oh,
her
I've
out.
seen that. There was one
Yeah.
time There's one time I was coming up out of the subway at like 86 or something like that, and this old woman fell downstairs. Just fell downstairs, happens, and really severely broke her leg. And immediately there were like 5 people right there, and like people were doing a triage. Who has the most medical experience? I do. Blah blah blah. Someone comes up. I'm a doctor. I'm a nurse. Bam. Literally 30, 35 seconds, this woman had like a doctor and nurse assisting her, like right there. Somebody's on the phone coordinating an ambulance. And that's just how things roll in New
I think they'd
York.
step over you here.
Yeah, that's a difference. Like I mean, and sorry, everybody out here seems to think they're so like respectful of others and whatnot, but like
No, they're
you'll
full.
turn around and
Yeah,
people stab you in the back.
they're full of
Like
shit here
San Francisco and this whole area, people will stab you in the
for
back.
sure.
They will be nice to your face and then stab you in the back when you walk
So we're
away.
becoming Hollywood.
Uh, Basically. Well, it's always been that way, in my opinion. In New York, we'll just stab you right in the face. We'll look you in the eye and we will stab you in the neck and we'll tell you why you're doing it as you fall to the ground dying. That is the approach we take toward things in New York.
And then where I'm from, they might not like you, but they'll say they'll pray for you and probably invite you to church.
Yeah.
Do you guys want a story?
Okay.
I'll just say one other difference is the speed at which people operate. I will say people are a little bit more chill out here than in New York. Like sometimes, the rapid bam, 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 bam fashion that we approach things at really seems to offend people out here. And we don't care.
Can I tell you a story?
Please.
Sorry, this is how my brain works. You start talking and then suddenly like some memory comes back. And this actually has nothing to do with anyone here but me, but it's funny and it involves Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
So I had this roommate named Dave. This was way before I met you. Probably I knew Chris. But anyway, Dave was from Jersey, but I didn't know that. We moved in together and we had this downstairs neighbor who was really noise sensitive. And so we would just walk around like normally and she would come up and bang on the door and start yelling at us. And she's like, "Stop walking around." It would just like go on and on and on. And so one day she comes and she knocks on the door and we open the door and she's like, she keeps banging the roof with something. And so like, she's like, "I'm from New York. And when this happens, we bang on the roof with a broom." And he's like, "Well, I'm from Jersey and we shoot through the floor with a gun." But it didn't end there. I mean, I thought that was really funny, but
Yeah.
At one point she just kept doing it. And so he lost his mind. He snapped. And we hear the knock on the door. He strips all of his clothes off and answers the door with Vaseline. And he's like, "Was I laying into her too much?"
Oh, God. That
So I start screaming in the back. Oh, my God. And he's like butt naked at the door. I'd never seen my roommate naked before that. And it was just crazy. We made up this whole scene that we were having some sort of BDSM session. We were just watching TV. And he came back and he was laughing so hard. She never came up again.
Oh,
That was the
man.
end of that.
I remember, that's similar to one I did that I actually feel bad about this one. I actually genuinely feel bad about this one because there's no reason for it. But I did it anyways. I remember when I was living in Nashville. And one of the things about living in Nashville is you're armed to the teeth. It's just, one of those things
As
at
you
that
should
period
be.
of time. No, actually, Nashville's incredible right now. The amount of building going on in
No,
Nashville.
I said you
it's
should be armed to
amazing.
the teeth.
Yeah, okay, I agree with that. Yeah. Well, I actually, there's an interesting thing because I have mixed feelings about that. Like, I support New York City being like a gun-free zone. Like, I actually do.
For shame.
I have my reasons. And like,
It's
how
it's not really a gun-free zone.
Well,
just so you know.
okay. No, I know it isn't. But we could go into great detail on this, but we're not. But anyway, I'm sitting in my apartment and I see a group of the Mormon missionaries heading up to my apartment. So I just think to myself, "Oh, this is going to be fun." And by the way, I have nothing against Mormons. I really don't. In fact, I actually like the Mormons a lot.
They're self-sufficient.
Yeah, and I their families tend to be great. I've had many Mormon friends. I love their families. They've treated me like wonderful.
They leave more
They're great.
Coca-Cola for the rest of us.
They're wonderful. Yeah, and coffee. More
Yeah.
coffee for the rest of. I got no problem with them at all. But anyway, I see him coming up. I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna have fun." So I just like joint rolled. I'm just like, perfect time to light it up. Click, grab my handgun. And I'm like, this is gonna be good. And they just kind of, they just kind of come up to my door, and I do this on purpose. I open the door. I have the joint hanging out of my mouth, the gun in my hand, and then just kind of wobbling around in a circle.
And they slam the door shut for you, right?
No, they just kind of looked at me in shock for, I don't know, 10, 20 seconds. Said, "Have a good day, sir." It's like, "Yeah, you too." And I just kind of saluted him like with the gun in my hand and slammed the door, sat back down and went back to work. But I actually feel bad about that because I think they were in fear of their lives at that moment.
They probably were, yeah. That
And I
probably
feel
wasn't
bad
good.
about that. I genuinely do, but kind of funny.
Well, talking about living in
Kinda
apartments
funny.
and Mormons,
Mhm.
when I was in college, I moved from apartment to apartment, and of course, if you go to enough places, you're going to have people living around you that are kind of undesirable or super annoying. So instead of just griping at them all
People
the
like
time,
me?
no, not you, not unless you start yelling.
Oh,
"You're
wait,
full of
dick. Wait. I got to
Wait, just a second.
Okay.
So what I would do is I would allow the Mormons to assist me. So I would request visits from the Mormons to those people's apartments
What?
and request literature and counseling and all sorts of
Nice.
stuff. So
That's
then-
more polite than swatting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So then Mormons would come, of course, and try
We
to
gotta bring
to
this
recruit them.
back.
Yeah.
Gamers have it all wrong. Not
Right?
swatting. You want to stick the Mormons on them
You
because
wanna-
they were relentless.
Yeah,
They
absolutely.
will not give up.
Well, what's even better?
But they are kind and nice.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
yes.
Absolutely. But what's even better is a Church of Scientology. So
Oh.
if you really don't-
Swatting is better than that. Okay, I would rather have a SWAT team come to my house than people from the Church of Scientology.
Yeah, so if you really get annoyed with your neighbor, just send the Church of Scientology and request ample reading supplies.
okay,
Oh my gosh.
you might have to edit that out. This is dangerous. Okay. Anyway, the thing I just remembered, since Cyan asked me embarrassing one. It's not embarrassing. I thought this was one of the funniest things. She had an apartment at one point, used as an office, and her neighbors hated it. They're just like, "Oh, this is like ridiculous," and and would always be bugging her about it. And I thought her approach toward handling that was brilliant. She told them all, "If you don't stop giving me shit, I'm going to sell the place to a drummer."
Yep, below market. I
Below
said, I'm going to
market.
find a drummer and sell it to them below market price or open a daycare. Because it turns out that's legal. And they can't do anything about it. There are no CCNRs, no HOA, nothing they can do about a daycare.
But I just thought that was so funny. I'll sell it below market to a drummer.
Strike the fear of God in them.
That would strike the fear of God into me if you use
They're,
that as a
they're
threat.
probably listening to this. Hi, HOA. I wouldn't put it past a few of them. Oh,
Just to keep tabs.
there's something else. I don't even care anymore. I don't care what I say about them. There's something else. They should know that they're a pain in the ass.
Well, how can you not? I mean, you're a group of people trying to tell a neighbor what they can or can't do with their own property that they purchased. I mean,
Well,
that whole concept to me is just
these
unreal.
guys get high off of it. There's some sort of like power trip. I
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
pitched
yeah.
a show to some TV people about doing something that was kind of like in the sort of design of like Big Bang Theory, but like with HOAs.
Mhm.
And so because the HOA that I'm in is so horrific. It's like comedy writing itself.
I've never heard a story from a single friend involving an HOA that was positive.
Yeah, this one is
I've never heard
particularly
one.
bad because speaking of being nice to your face and shitty behind your back, yeah, they are. You'll see them at like pass by them. And they're like, "Hi," and then the next thing you know, they're sticking the like cops on you
Oh, God.
or the city or whatever. You know,
You
it's
see-
like they're not neighborly.
Yeah, I mean, living in New York is its own thing. Like I had a war with my upstairs neighbor not too long ago. Thank God she's gone now. Oh God, thank God. But like, New York is noisy. It's noisy. It's noisy all the time. You deal with stuff. And the general way that people in my building are is like, noise is noise and it is what it is. But like when it comes to, nighttime and everybody's sleeping, be cool, be chill. That's not like the time to be like, assembling your IKEA furniture, or whatever, and this one neighbor upstairs, I actually felt bad, like really bad for her because she clearly had some kind of like anxiety disorder or something. Because like middle of the night, like you're hearing all this noise, and there was like one time where it was like 2 a.m. in the morning, and like me and my girlfriend, we're trying to sleep, which is a reasonable proposition at 2 a.m. in the morning. There's all this kind of crazy noise, and I just did that thing. I stood on top of the bed and I slammed the ceiling with my fist 3 times, and I hear the response 3 times back. Then everything goes quiet, right? And I'm like, okay, all right, we got that worked out. Next day, same kind of thing happens again, and I do it again. And then like this time, it's just like stomp, 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 like all really pissed off. And she like comes down and like just starts la 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 like bitching at me, and I'm like, what the hell? You're the one here that's being the dick, like stop. It's the middle of the night. Like if you got to make noise during the day, I don't care. I'm at this point I was working from home, so like I'm home almost all day. I hear noise from everywhere. I don't care. Uh, but like after that point, she would literally just stomp around her apartment every time she'd walk. So every time she walked across her apartment, stomp, 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 and I just constantly hear that all the time. Stomp, 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 stomp. It was like having a terrorist living above you. And she finally moved out, and I was just like, thank God. But why can't people just respect their neighbors? It's not like it's that hard.
Yeah, I mean, though,
It takes more energy to be
in
a
all
pain in the
fairness,
ass than it takes to be
people who are
kind.
sensitive to upstairs noise should not live downstairs. Like that's the problem that we actually have with our HOA right now. I'm actually upstairs.
Mhm.
Luckily, because I'm right where I belong.
Well, we're in New York. You're
upstairs.
stuck with multiple floor buildings.
Well,
There is
sure,
no there,
sure.
there is upstairs and downstairs
Well,
everywhere.
yeah, true.
You know,
But in this particular building, there's only upstairs and downstairs. But the people who are the biggest pain in the ass chose the bottom floor.
bad
Why?
move.
Why?
Yeah.
So I'm going to call them by secret code names.
Do you need little?
I need a code
stickets?
name.
Here, you can write out. You can write out.
Give me a
names.
code name.
Watermelon.
Okay, Watermelon. So Watermelon lives in the apartment near the door. And so Watermelon loves to catalog, for whatever reason, who comes and goes. And Watermelon knows way too much about the ladies in the building. Did I tell you the
That
lemon
is
tree story?
seriously
Yeah.
creepy.
Yeah, so Watermelon comes to an HOA meeting, and we have this ant problem in our building. And I've only been to 2 HOA meetings. The first one, I vowed to never come back. The second one, I was running for the HOA, and that's a whole other story. I was trying to, with another person, take over, because these people are just so insufferable. But anyway, these ants, like, were taking over the building, and this guy, Watermelon, volunteers to take care of the ant problem because there's a hot lady next door who has a tree with lemons, and he's convinced that the lemon tree is the source of the ants. And he's like,
No, ant colonies are huge. They span across, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of feet. They're gigantic.
yeah, and he's like, I'll go over there if you know what I mean, and like get her to move her lemon tree. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I roll. I mean, that's mild compared to the stuff they've done. But like, there was the one person who came in. I actually don't have a code name. They came in. They said, you know how we solve disputes in my world? We have a pillow fight.
There's your code name, Pillow.
You got pillow.
Code name
watermelon.
Pillow.
Pillow,
Watermelon.
Yeah, I had
Then there's the litigious lawyer who's probably listening, who's
Oh,
like, how
God.
can I sue her? Who just like called the city on me because I was cleaning my floors. Like, actually had them come do an inspection because he thought I was doing something else. Yeah, so there's that guy. There was my neighbor who died. So my neighbor died on his toilet.
Oh, that is not Elvis style.
Elvis style. It was awful, actually. He was a really nice guy. He was a vet, and he was old. And of course, as soon as he dies, like they start making fun of him on the mailing list. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? The guy just died.
That's not cool.
They
That's just not
died.
cool.
Like, and they just kept making fun of him. And I was like, and I brought this up at the last HOA meeting. I'm like, you guys have like no heart. You're awful people.
Yeah, that's just not cool.
Awful people.
We need more kindness in the world.
We do need more kindness.
And I mean, I don't it
I have 3 or
befuddles
4
me.
kind neighbors there,
Mm.
but most of
It
them are not.
befuddles me because it takes so much more energy to be an asshole than it does
Right.
to just simply be a nice person.
So maybe that's what they need is just some kind of happiness in their life.
Yeah.
Maybe they're just deeply unhappy.
That's
Maybe I'm just too happy.
that's my take on it. Most of the time, like I think it's probably just there's something that really sucks about these people's lives or some trauma that made them just decide they needed to be an asshole to
So,
have control over others.
Do you think that if that they feel that if they shed some of their misery, then it'll make them less miserable?
I have
or-
no idea.
I think they have some sort of sadistic joy out of like torturing their neighbors, which doesn't make sense because like they live right next to you.
Yeah.
Like why?
Like
Like don't shit in your backyard.
Yeah.
Like, go to someone else's backyard and shit. Like if you
Yeah.
want to pick on someone,
Yeah.
maybe you should do it someplace else.
yeah. I mean, like I feel lucky. The building I live in right now, I know all my, neighbors around me and stuff like that. We all know each other. It's not like we hang out, but we talk in the hallway, hey, how you doing kind of stuff. Everybody's friendly and everybody knows that if somebody's got a problem, your neighbors will come and help you, you have issues when you live in a building, a pipe break, something like that, somebody needs to carry a couch up the stairs, neighbors will help each other out, and especially, like I said, New Yorkers don't get enough credit. They tend to be really kind and look after each other, but yeah, I've never been able to understand that. The neighbor I was at war with clearly had some kind of mental thing going on. I mean, she seemed like a nice person when you just talked to her, but don't live downstairs from her.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So my neighbors drove out a pot dispensary in our neighborhood. They reported them because basically they figured out some sort of I don't know if you call it a loophole or it's not a loophole, like some sort of regulation around like where pot dispensaries can be in proximity to a school.
Mhm.
And it turns out there's a high school nearby. And so they were able to get them shut down. And these people had been there for like the longest time.
Mm.
And then, afterwards they were celebrating it. But guess who moves in right afterwards?
The liquor store?
Needle exchange.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh, great.
It's even better.
Oh, they flipped their shit. And they were just like, we don't want heroin junkies here. We got to drive them out of town now. And I'm like, seriously? Seriously?
You just created this, so
You
welcome.
created this problem.
Congratulations.
Like, seriously. So I had to stand up against them for that and like go and show support for the needle exchange place because it was just so ridiculous. And the other thing is they weren't exchanging needles on premise.
Mm.
Like they were exchanging needles out of trucks, not at that site. So it was like,
So they're literally
unbelievable.
just operating the business out of there, but they're taking care of
right. That was the
yeah.
administrative facility. Like people, like
just the office work.
users were not walking in there. It was just
Yeah.
ridiculous. But it didn't matter to them. They just lost it. They love to lose it over everything.
Mm.
Yeah, you know
well,
what?
I think I met one of your nice neighbors before. I was walking around the block one time, and I was just looking around the neighborhood, and I leaned up against like a post next to their gate, and the guy walks up and is like, "Excuse me, please move away from my gate." I'm like, "What are you doing? I'm not a criminal."
You know what I'm going to do next? Because we're actually allowed by the CCNRs to put political posters in our window.
Mhm.
I'm going to put out a Donald Trump.
Oh, that'd be
Poster.
great.
Oh, my God.
I have a car.
Nothing will drive them more crazy than that.
I have a car magnet for you too.
Yeah, I'll just put it out there because then they'll try to get that out of the CCNRs and they can't.
Yeah.
They can't do it. So
Just I wouldn't be surprised if you have a rock thrown at your window.
Yeah,
Just-
I wouldn't.
just saying.
I wouldn't be surprised either.
Yeah.
That around there.
So just
no.
go ahead and look up the window.
those windows are hard to replace. Maybe
You-
I
you
shouldn't
be- you
do
be-
that.
You'd be better off putting like a swastika in the window.
Not in the city.
Well, you think Donald Trump's going to work well there?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think the people in San Francisco just need to be a little more open minded. Come
Maybe
on.
just a little bit. It's just a sign.
Yeah.
And I also am not voting for him or supporting him. I just want to piss off my neighbors.
Well, no, I saw somebody on Twitter earlier saying, "Oh, my sister my sister wrote this on Facebook saying that if she got the coronavirus, she would go to every MAGA rally she could."
Well, that's pleasant.
And I'm like, okay, so now you're like, I'm just gonna potentially kill people because I don't agree with them.
Yeah, it's a
It's
little
ridiculous.
overwhelming.
That's pretty fucked
Oh,
up.
by the way, I want to pitch you on an idea because this whole coronavirus gave me an idea, right? There's a whole market for viruses that I think we could like really explore. And based off this one, I think there's a virus that we should create. Because when I saw the name coronavirus, there was something that immediately came to mind. I would have named it the Contravirus. And then I would have gone out and I would have sold a cure that I would have called up, up, down, down, left, right, BA, start. So all we need is a virus, right?
Nerd.
We need a virus. We need a cure for the virus called the Contravirus.
Game nerd.
And then we sell the Konami cure.
The Konami cure.
Oh, I think the gentleman that made the Konami code just died today, actually.
What?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, let me pull it up.
Oh.
Nick had no idea.
Rest in peace, man.
Rattle.
I just love you. You couldn't hold to it for more than 30 seconds. Doesn't matter.
By the way, should we let Chris back in?
Oh man, at 61, that's a little young to go.
Oh, it was 1 day ago. Sorry, it was
Okay.
on Tuesday.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh well.
Isn't it weird how the world works though, that you're thinking that and then like that happens?
Dude, I'm always thinking about the Konami code. I don't know why. Maybe it's just how much joy that code gave me over the years.
Should we let Chris back in?
Well, he's allowed to come in.
I don't think he probably thinks he can though.
Oh.
So, is he out there?
I don't know if he's on the call.
No, that was a phantom.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh well.
I don't know if he can actually figure out that he's allowed back in.
Yeah, but the Contravirus. It should have been called the Contravirus.
I can message him.
I wasn't sure where you were going with that. I thought you were going to pitch me on like a different type of business idea.
No, I was just literally, just screwing with you.
Nice. So what else?
If I was going to pitch you on something, I don't think I'd do it over a podcast, Cyan.
You never know, Nick. You never know. People.
And just for those listening, she did shoot me a look like, "Oh shit, what the hell is he going to do?"
Yeah. What are you?
She's
what are
like, you wouldn't believe where I get pitched.
Well, one time recently, actually, someone sent me their pitch on a shoe. They sent me their shoe in the mail. And so I was at work and I opened up a box and there was a shoe inside.
Okay.
It definitely stuck out.
I
I definitely remember it. It worked
Okay.
in that regard. Please do not send me shoes.
But it wasn't.
It's been done.
But it wasn't.
Somebody already did that.
It wasn't a successful pitch.
No, as a matter of fact, if you are listening to this and you are an entrepreneur, generally mailing any kind of pitch it's not received well by investors. They go straight to the trash can. So, and I can't tell you why. It's like it's just sort of a.
Or does it even get to them, or does the receptionist or
Sometimes
whomever
it
just
never
throw
even
away?
gets to them,
Yeah.
but sometimes if it does get to you, I mean, there is this sort of like, is there anthrax in here sort of feeling for a moment where you're just like, is this safe to open? Because sometimes they're like really weird packages.
I dealt with a lot of those situations working in the think tank community, because like, not going to name places, but some of them have like crazy conspiracy theories around them.
Mhm.
Oh my God!
Well, the other thing
that
is
we
that
get
we
in the
live
mail.
in the internet age. There's this thing called, email.
Yeah.
And it's really cheap and easy to send a deck.
Well, it always seemed like to me the whole thing was about relationships.
But
It's also about
you
relationships.
have to go and build relationships.
I'm more likely to respond to a cold email. I'm never going to respond to a deck that's mailed to me. Never.
or shoe.
Or a shoe.
or shoe.
However, one of the coolest
Like
presentations.
a pair of socks, maybe.
No.
You got to work higher up the
No, I
ladder.
got to work up higher.
A jacket, perhaps.
No, I get a lot of jackets. I have so many jackets. Oh my God, Lady Gaga. Lee just pulled up a picture of Lady Gaga.
Yeah, of her leaving. I believe this was the Super Bowl after her Super Bowl performance, right?
Yeah. So the other day I saw this headline that said, Lady Gaga's dating an ordinary guy.
Just a regular Joe.
Just a regular Joe.
Ordinary guy. What exactly is that?
And it was a picture of her like definitely like they were on a balcony and she was like on his lap and they were definitely like doing stuff. And so I like Lady Gaga, so I start looking into it. Yeah. I start looking into it. Maybe they're on a boat. I think they're on a boat.
Yeah, it looks like a boat.
Yeah.
On a
So they're-
motherfucking boat.
Yeah, I'm on a boat. I love that song.
I do too.
So anyway, I see this, and then I'm like, I'm gonna go look at the comments, and then everybody's like, "Who is this guy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, who is this guy?" That he's so ordinary. So I click on it,
Just
and
a regular guy.
I discover he was before my time at Founders Fund, but apparently he worked at Founders Fund for a period of time. And he's like down the hallway from Founders Fund, now working for Sean Parker, or was working at the Cancer Institute, Parker Institute. And I just thought it was really interesting because I had this moment where I was like, oh, wow.
That's not fair to either of them.
All of us are kind of accessible at this point to Lady Gaga.
Well, why shouldn't we be? If she's into somebody, why shouldn't she be allowed to be
this should give my
into
friends
them?
some hope. You know, that like, I was just like, oh, my guy friend. And the other thing that was really funny in the comments, all these people were talking about, like, at least she's got a man who has lots of money and he's like up on his game and whatever. And I'm like, why do people think that finance guys have lots of money? They don't. I'm like, he's a guy that was like, I believe he was an associate. I don't know.
Look, either way, I see that as like unfair to both of them in different ways. Like, so if you're a star, you can only date other stars. That doesn't seem fair to stars.
No.
Well,
And
no,
it
I mean-
also doesn't seem fair to the guy to be like ridiculed in that, like, you know, he's just a regular guy. You know, that it just seems there are
Yeah.
multiple ways.
Well, I mean,
that's
it
screwed
shouldn't
up.
really be surprising. I mean, people are people.
Well, that's the point. People are people.
Celebrities, they have a job doing some, job that you're not used to, but it's a normal job to them, right? They pretend to be people, and
Yeah.
they're recorded
But
on
that-
film, and they're
you
paid
just-
for it. And so one of the things I just pulled up was an older story from last year about Sharon Stone, how she was blocked off of Bumble, the dating service,
Because they thought it was a fake
because
account.
they thought it was a fake account. And so then she went on Twitter saying,
No, that's just funny.
yeah, she's like, how am I supposed to date? Oh, here you go. I went on Bumble dating site and they closed my account. Some users reported that it couldn't possibly be me. Don't shut me out of the hive.
Yeah. What was interesting after that, the comments were good too.
So it makes you wonder. It's like, so what celebrities are using Tinder or Bumble or whatever service? Because I mean, hell, you might be able to date a celebrity
Well, I know there are a lot
They're
of
definitely on
late-
Tinder.
or Lady Gaga.
I know there are a lot of celebrities and whatnot that that use dating sites with false names, for that reason. I know that's a thing.
Yeah, I think what was interesting about that were the comments also. I always like stay for the comments. A lot of women were really pleased because they were like, man, if Sharon Stone can't get a date and she's on Bumble,
right?
my life isn't so bad.
And then also the guys were like, oh shit, I could date Sharon Stone.
Yeah, exactly. I'm getting, maybe it was coordinated. They're like,
Maybe.
shit,
Well,
I
there
better
you
get
go.
on
You know,
Bumble.
they got like farmersonly.com.
Farmersonly.com.
And that kind of makes sense.
We need to be sponsored by them too.
And I mean, that kind of makes sense in a way. So maybe they just need to have like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something clever.
So I want this podcast now sponsored by Bass Pro Shop
Best
and
Pro Shop
Farmers Only.
and Farmers Only. Okay, everything middle of the country.
Yeah,
I've been having fun. I
farmersonly.com.
love the farming community. Like I've actually involved
you
in this
better.
kind of research. I'm kind of involved in this research thing having to do with something I'll talk about off mic. But I've been traveling around to farms all over the Hudson River Valley in New York and meeting farmers and communing with cows and lambs
Looking for
and
crop
things.
circles?
Not crop circle territory. You
That's
couldn't
like-
really
that's
do
like
that out
Kansas.
there. Yeah,
Okay.
that's more like Kansas. You need a really good cornfield or something
Indiana,
like that for that.
that sort of area.
But yeah, no, it's been really really fun actually. The farming community around New York upstate is incredible.
Oh, that's
Great
right. They're into
people.
like maple trees and stuff. like
all
syrup.
kinds
Well,
of
and they
different
have
stuff.
apples.
No, that's
Like
a little bit
New York-
farther north.
New York
Oh.
has apples too, I think.
Yeah, Massachusetts is really big on apples.
I'm showing my lack of East Coast knowledge. At the
It's all
moment.
right.
And then a little bit further
That's
north,
why you got to
Vermont
come out to
isn't,
New York. You got to come out and visit sometime.
Vermont has the whole sugaring season with the maple.
So you're out on a farm.
Oh no, I just want to say, farmers are cool and that community is cool. That's it.
Farmers are
Hudson
very
River
cool.
Valley, man, or
Yeah.
Hudson River Valley, beautiful.
Farmers are the shit. And we want to get sponsored by all of the things that support farmers.
John Deere, just whatever.
John Deere would be
Yeah,
amazing.
just get a whole new tractor.
Oh, that'd be amazing, John Deere.
Yeah,
I don't want a whole new tractor.
you don't know.
No, I like the
Mm.
tractor I have. It's
Wait.
very, very sentimental.
You have a tractor.
I do. I have a tractor. It's my grandfather's tractor.
Um,
And when he passed, my grandmother called me and she asked if there was anything that I wanted. And I said, yeah, I want his overalls, and I want the shirts that he wore, and I want the tractor. And she's like, you want the tractor? Why? Like, what are you going to do with it in San Francisco? And I was like, I'll find a place
We'll
for
come
it.
up with something.
I'll come up with something. I'm like, it doesn't matter. I need the tractor. And the reason why is that my grandfather picked cotton, and he was really, really poor, and he saved up enough money to buy this tractor because he was a sharecropper, and then eventually he was able to get his own farming land. And the way that he farmed, obviously you're going to increase yields and stuff like that if you have a tractor, because he was out tilling land like with his, hands and
Oh,
probably
wow.
like a horse.
I don't remember what tractor was it? A Massey Ferguson or
International.
International?
Yeah. So it's an old International from the 50s, maybe 40s. It looks just like that, but
Hey,
older.
Chris is returning.
That
And
one?
so,
We're talking about tractors. Chris, hop on in.
yeah. So, it looks like one of these. But anyway, my grandfather has pictures of my mother and my uncle on the tractor. And then when I was little and 6 years old, I used to drive it around, and he would let me drive down to the pond. We'd go fishing, and we'd go to the orchards and pick stuff. And I almost drove us off of a cliff once with it. But anyway, my dream is that it keeps going in my family, and so I salvaged it and I have it. But yeah, I don't do anything with it.
I have a
I
feeling.
had this fantasy that
I have a
people hay
feeling
rides.
your son will like that.
Probably.
How do you not like a tractor? I have a huge tractor back in Arkansas. You can pick cars up with it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Push
that's
trees
awesome.
over.
Well, Chris is back.
He is. Now we can
I'm back.
going from tractors.
You had a Fiero, so we're going from a red tractor. We
Oh,
got
we're going back-
pictures of red
Are we
tractors.
going back to the Fiero? Yeah, because we didn't have enough time for the Fiero story.
I want to hear it.
Yeah, sorry, we didn't talk behind your back much.
That's okay.
Yeah, we
saved it all
decided
for
against
you.
it.
Yeah, so maybe we'll tell the Fiero story and then move on to Doomsday
Doomsday Survival.
because we waited for you. We
don't wanna cut you out of the
need
fun.
you.
I could use a break for a cigarette. Ugh.
You do that still.
I still, yeah, unfortunately, it's my worst addiction.
That's the one nice thing
Stupid.
about
I know
moving
it's
here.
stupid. I know
Do
it's
you want to
stupid.
take a break?
I could use a break. There's a bathroom thing involved there too. But
Oh, okay.
TMI.
All right, we'll take a break.
While we're on break, I would like to let you know that we are not brought to you by FarmersOnly.com. But, we could be.
FarmersOnly.com.
We are back from our break.
Yeah,
and
sorry
it is
about
time for Doomsday.
Yeah. First,
But
I just have to
before we go to
apologize for the
Doomsday,
break.
Yeah, sorry.
Because
yeah.
I'm just fatigued as hell right now because we've been doing RSA this week. And I just want to say how much I hate RSA. Like, I hate this conference so deeply. It's like walking into the mosh pit of despair every time you walk on the expo floor. And it's like there's so many people here that I consider deep, close, personal friends and allies, right? Like, I run into people constantly that are people I really like. Normally, you'd think this would be like happy times, but I can't stand RSA.
So a lot of people listening to this probably have no. I mean, I do have
and
a
that's
huge
good. If
infosec
you don't know,
following,
if
but
you
like,
don't know what RSA
what does RSA
is,
st for?
I don't remember all the dudes' names. It's
three last names,
three
right?
last names.
So there's the security tokens.
Well, RSA was an encryption algorithm, PKI stuff. I'm not going to go into detail on it. But anyway, it's basically just a brand now, the way it's used.
Mhm.
I think it's pronounced Rizzo.
Rizzo.
Oh, and by the way, that is Constantine, who is
Oh
joining
yeah.
us
yeah,
now.
Welcome,
Constantine is
Constantine.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah.
We're gonna give him a nick, a handle soon.
Const.
I'm not calling him Const. He needs to be called something else.
I think Constantine's great.
Well, no, it's great. It's his name, but like I'm saying, he needs a handle.
I thought const, const like a constant variable.
It's like constipation. No.
I named him. He's mine. He's my partner in crime.
Okay, Const is nerdy. Okay,
Look,
that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm attracted to constipation.
My name is Constipation. So just for a moment, we're gonna pause. I want to shout out to our sponsor,
Our non-sponsor.
What?
our non-sponsor. So this episode is brought to you by Cracker Barrel.
It is not brought to us by Cracker Barrel, but if you have a hankering for some home cooking meal, it's a great place to take the family.
If you need some knickknacks and a chair,
Absolutely. Have you had their candy?
I have had their candy.
It's awesome. I love Cracker Barrel. When I was
If you
driving
want
across
mashed
the country,
potatoes and a turkey,
I'm wondering how many things we've done
Cracker
over
Barrel.
the course of this podcast that could spark a lawsuit.
No, no.
I wonder what our count is.
Whatever. Who cares?
Yeah.
They're not going to sue us. Come on, Cracker Barrel. It's awesome.
Yeah, we're not
I drove
saying
across the
anything bad.
country, and it's very consistent. So driving
Oh, it is
3,000 miles
consistent.
across, I'm like, nothing else is open. I don't know this place. Oh, there's Cracker Barrel.
But you
It's good
see, the
enough.
thing is almost everywhere that has a Cracker Barrel also has a Waffle House. And I'm sorry, no competition. Waffle House wins.
Oh, shit.
Well, maybe our
No
next
way.
episode will be
You-
sponsored by Waffle
can't,
House.
You can't get chicken and dumplings at
That is true,
at
and you can't get okra.
no.
And you can't get a
I
patty
love me
melt
some
at
fried
a
okra.
Cracker
Mm.
Barrel.
Oh, you don't
Mhm.
need that because you can get catfish at Cracker Barrel, and you can't do that at Waffle House.
Chicken fried steak.
It doesn't matter
Chicken
what.
fried
It
steak
doesn't
is good.
really matter where you measure it. Cracker Barrel wins, hands
I
down.
don't know. Okay,
Anybody
we
else
will
getting
will
hungry?
agree to disagree. I'm on Team Waffle
Well,
House.
I mean, Black Bear Diner beats everything, but
No.
Oh.
No, them fighting words. That's
Does-
a toy shop.
Does the Black Bear Diner keep a nice home-lit wooden fire roasting right next to you while you're eating?
Does it have warm
Cracker Barrel
maple
does.
syrup? Because Cracker Barrel does, yeah.
Well, they get me with their three little bear, the Mama Bear,
You
Papa
like
Bear.
the stuffed bears.
Well, no,
Admit it.
the hot sauces that they have. They have three kind of hot sauces at the table. They're
Of
like corned beef
course.
hash is made out of a real corned beef that's been shredded in delicious, and everything's oversized like amounts of breakfast food. Like when I get out of Burning Man, I beeline it to Fallon for that Black Bear Diner because it's just so good.
I had no idea, Chris. Anyway,
Yeah.
this episode not
Doomsday
brought
Prep.
to you
Yeah.
by Cracker Barrel. All right, moving on.
So, I think we're going to get on to Doomsday Prepping real quick.
Woohoo!
So we got a little bit of time left.
It's the hottest topic right now.
How can it not be?
because
I actually dated or changed my dating profile to let people know that I can keep you alive in a zombie apocalypse.
Nice. Nice. Attractive.
I mean, there's good
Well,
reason.
you know,
there's good
finally-
reason for it to be a
Finally,
topic
some
right now.
redneck skills actually come in handy.
Nice.
Oh, there are a
middle of the
ton of
country.
redneck skills
Yeah.
that come in handy. There's no shortage of those.
Well, hopefully the ladies here agree. And they're like, you know what I need?
But we also had a
Some redneck skills.
Yeah, absolutely.
That sounds like a handle.
You need to make sure. How else are you going to make sure?
Hey,
that-
what's your name? Redneck Skills. First name Redneck, last name Skills.
With a Z.
how else are you going to make sure that your lineage survives, right?
Right.
So we did have a question by one person that was curious about low budget prepping.
Oh, yeah. Low
Like
budget
how,
prepping.
how you get into low budget prepping.
Well, a lot of people, when they responded to you
Mhm.
online, they were like, oh, doomsday prepping's for rich people.
Yeah,
And,
no.
because I
no.
think they're thinking like bunkers in New Zealand.
Or like these expensive pallets, like $5,000 pallets from Costco, to where you can have food for a year or something.
Yeah, I
that
don't think
sort
they're
of thing.
actually thinking like what. Anyway, that's a good question. I'll start. Rice and beans.
Rice and beans are the staple. Even a lot of this, even if you do get the annual pallet to have enough food for a year, a lot of that is going to be rice and beans. It's filler and it's carbohydrates that keep you alive.
And currently at Hacker Farms, the way we store that, we store it in 5-gallon buckets, and we use those gamma seals. They snap on top of the bucket, and they have a rubber seal, and they have a big, huge, like screw tight lid. And you can buy those
just for waterproofing.
It's for waterproofing and moisture because you want to keep like the sugar and the flour and all that stuff dry.
Yeah.
And so those you can buy those on Amazon. They're called Gamma Seal, and you can buy like a 5-pack. And
Awesome.
You
Well,
go,
yeah,
go to
like
Home Depot, buy your bucket. One thing I would
A
like to mention.
5-gallon bucket would give you enough food for a month
Sure, and
if it's rice and beans.
you can also put these on 3-gallon buckets too if you don't have the room for the 5-gallon buckets. But I think some people might be concerned with the chemicals from the plastics in the 5-gallon bucket. But that's probably the least of your worries during a prepping session.
Yeah.
But I do know that you can buy food safe liners to put inside your buckets. If that's
I only want
what,
organic food when I'm surviving.
Oh,
yeah.
organic, non-GMO. You need.
I want all the
non-GMO.
GMO I can get when I'm surviving. So
Yeah, but one of the things too is, so, like rice, for example, you can. It's already dried. It will stay good and it's edible for 20 to 30 years. So you're right off the bat. As long as you keep that dry, you're good. Any of those dry goods, beans, 20, 30 years, you're good. If you do need to, like Chris is saying, store it in a container, then you can also buy some food grade CO2 or nitrogen. and fill those containers up, and it removes all the oxygen out of the container as well. So it's even more crisp and fresh after you open it.
So
You
there was
see, I think this is kind of weird the way I see people approach doomsday prepping, and part of it is because I am from that camp where like I do doomsday prepping for a bunch of people, and it's the kind of stuff that involves helicopters and seaplanes and DR sites and things like that, right? So I have a weird perspective, but like when I look at what like most individuals can do if you're like living in like a two-bedroom apartment and whatnot, you're not going to be like having like some kind of massive food store. It's not reasonable. What I recommend to everybody is whether you're like just the same thing I recommend to like my wealthy clients as I would to anybody is if you wanted to make a simple basic investment that would really help you in basically any disaster situation, it would be a really solid good go bag. You get a
Oh
go
yeah.
bag. You have one change of clothes in there that's like, that's like the kind of stuff that you want to be wearing
And
if
you need
you're
to make
like,
sure that you have at least something that's going to keep you dry as
yeah,
well.
if like
So like
3 days.
like a light rain jacket or something in
Yeah,
there, or a
three.
parka.
Well, what I would recommend is literally like your hardcore like I'm going hiking pants and all that stuff. A coat. Basically one change of clothes that'll cover every situation that you might need to deal with. And a few days of food. An MRE MREs aren't a bad way to go for that
Yeah, an
because
MRE. Yeah,
if you're gonna
MREs.
have to
Yeah,
bolt. You're going to need that like real high energy food.
yeah.
And those are relatively cheap. They're relatively light. They last forever. So you could put together a go bag that, so you got that change of clothes, you got that food, you got, some basic tools, knives, things like that. Basically the stuff that you might need, depending on where you live. A handgun might be a good idea, but you basically just have the big backpack that has all that.
Every go bag should have a handgun, to be honest. I
Yeah.
mean, you never know what's going to happen in
Yeah. I mean,
some
it's,
disaster. People they might turn savage
yeah,
and try to steal everything, and
but,
that is your survival.
but
So
like
you will have to defend you and your family.
if you build some kind of if you live like in the middle of nowhere and you can build a compound or something like that, it's a completely different
Yeah.
strategy, right? But if you're just like living here in San Francisco or whatnot, just the simplest thing you can do is just have like a really really solid go bag so that like you can get out of Dodge.
You
And
should have
then
that for earthquakes anyway.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, you really should.
And
uh,
in your go bag, one of the most important things to have, people think about food. Oh, I need food. First thing you need is water, and
yeah.
also some way to purify water. So if water is shut off, there might be backflow in the
Yep.
pipelines. Might not be sanitized anymore. You might have to collect it from rain gutters or a stream or whatever. They also have decontamination tablets that will go into the water, or you can have a really nice small filtration system that you can tie into a bottle.
Yeah.
So you can put dirty water into a bottle and it runs through the filter and it comes out clean.
And the other thing is, once you have that basic kind of stuff, the additional most important thing is, are you part of a community that is going to work together when something goes wrong? So if you, live in a neighborhood and you have like, 20 people who are prepped to go, you can work it out so that, some of the things that would be nice to have in that situation, but not everybody can carry with them. You go, oh, you take this thing, you take this thing, and you take this thing. Like, yeah, you should have, the radio and or the nice ICOM, ham radio stuff, and you carry the this extra thing ammunition and blah blah blah, and you just have it so that like when the crap hits the fan, you got a team of like good platoon sized team that's ready to just basically get mobile.
There are definitely different levels of prepping.
Right,
So
right.
if you have urban
Totally.
prepping so generally if you're going to have a disaster that's going to happen, you need to have a plan on what you're going to do. Are
Yeah.
you going to exfiltrate yourself from the city? Are you going to bunker down in your community or in your house, in your apartment? Can you do that feasibly? Do you have enough food for that? Do you have water supplies? Another
if the
thing,
communication systems are down,
Yeah.
where does everybody meet?
yeah.
Like
So if you do have a plan to get out, you will need defensive stuff. If you are going to hunker down in your own place for a while, you need to make sure you have duct tape and plastic. So if it is a contagion or a chemical spill, or so in where I'm from, one of the big things, I lived down the road from an arsenal that had VX and mustard gas. So we all had to be prepared with NBC, nuclear biological chemical masks, but also create a positive airflow environment or something that seals off the environment as well. Because if you have trains going by, you might have a derailment of chlorine, and that turns into chlorine gas, and which will kill you instantly. So if you do have a nice contagious area of a disease breaking out, just go to your hardware store. You can find plenty of this plastic material for painters. So it's just a floor covering that you can get. Have a nice pocket knife or a box cutter. You can cut and seal around your door frames, your door jambs, your threshold, seal off your windows, and then you're fairly hermetically sealed.
Yeah,
I have a
there's a big
question
level
about
of
that hermetically
education
sealed.
about.
Uh-huh.
I have a question about that because in apartments, there's a lot of airflow between apartments that's unaccounted for and difficult to understand. It's always confusing.
Yeah, you will need to close off your air vents as well. So if apartments are back to back, let's say for your bathroom, for example, so you have the little fart sucker, right? That's up at the top of the roof, so or top of the ceiling. So you turn it on and suck gas out. Well, those aren't guarded for any backflow or anything because they will be connected and probably share in an apartment the same exit vent that your neighbor does. So you'll need to seal off those sorts of vents, and also I would seal off your cooking stove, your air vent on your cooking stove where you have the exhaust fan there. Seal that off for the same reason.
And very astute to point out the thing about the poop shafts, because that's actually relevant to the stuff that's going on with the contravirus. Should have been called the contravirus, but it's actually relevant to that because it can. One of the things that I saw yesterday is apparently it can be spread by farts.
I heard it was going through.
Well, I mean,
sewers.
that's speculative. Of course, we're talking about social media stuff,
But-
I would think that spreading through gas would be a fairly low risk. Now, if you're in the immediate area where somebody has, diarrhea going on, yeah,
Right.
you'll
Gaseous
have
plumes.
you'll have pathogens,
Yeah.
in that environment.
Yeah,
But
it's
no
spread-
matter
it's
no matter
spread
which
farts.
But we have to find a happy medium to where we're rational versus hysterical.
Well, I think no matter which class of prepper you're in, one of the key things is you need to be agile about your plans. If you just have like one plan, that it might not work for that situation. There are certain situations you're going to need to bolt. There are certain situations you're going to need to hunker down, and there are a lot of situations where you're going to need to hunker down for a few days and then bolt.
Yeah.
Like for instance, if you have a nuclear event that occurs. You need to hunker down for 72 hours. You need to cut off airflow. You need to get in a room, completely cut off airflow, and hunker down for about 72 hours.
And it doesn't hurt to have potassium iodide.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It does help. But because a key
Oh,
thing.
they should have that beforehand too.
You should.
Because
thing to
you
know.
will never get
after
it.
Fukushima, it
And-
was
Yeah.
off the shelves.
And here's
Yeah.
the thing: potassium iodide, for y'all that don't know, it's an isotope that you can put in your body to for your thyroid. So your
Mhm.
body will go ahead and pre-absorb that potassium iodide, so you don't ingest and absorb radioactive isotopes.
Yeah, because key thing to know about almost every type of nuclear event that was likely to occur is that if it's a condition that has fallout, the fallout will lose roughly 90% of its radiation in about 48 to 72 hours. And
Because you're talking about half-life, so every
Yeah, exactly.
section of time it's cut in half.
Yeah, so
until it
it's-
gets smaller.
So, like, if let's just say virtually any type of nuclear bomb went off over a city, and there are a lot of different types of nuclear bombs, but if virtually anyone went off over a major city, you've got about 15 minutes. You got literally about 15 minutes before the fallout starts to hit.
Mhm.
So, if you survived, you got about 15 minutes to figure out a place with no airflow, and you've
Seal
got
up
to
your
stay
place.
there,
Yeah.
and you got to stay there for about 72 hours, and you've got to conserve your energy. And then after that point, you've got to be prepared to bolt.
You also need to fill up your bathtub as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
that's your water source.
Yeah,
Because
like-
you don't know if the water is going to be contaminated after that point.
Yeah, it's a
you
good
can also
idea.
drink the water in the back of your toilet bowl.
Yeah, and you can also drink your own urine and go for about a
That's
week.
not really great for the kidneys.
No, it isn't. But I mean, if you're really screwed,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but that's one thing that I think is very important. But I can't emphasize enough that in any doomsday situation, unless you have your own compound or you're lucky enough to be protected by one of an organization like I run, you need to be part of a local community. like close to you that is all prepared to work together. Because if you think you're going to be able to do this stuff completely solo, I'm sorry, you don't have too many option paths that work out well for you. But if you're part of a
Not
community that's planning together, you have a lot more things.
unless you found a redneck on Tinder.
So
And it
so
also doesn't hurt to like, take some emergency preparedness like classes like
oh
EMT
yeah.
training and
Yeah, I think
search and
everybody should have
rescue.
basic first aid training. I
Search
mean,
and rescue too. I mean,
yeah,
I think this is stuff that all people should worry about all the time.
Mhm.
And it's interesting that
I,
people are just thinking about it now because of a virus that is unlikely actually to kill most of the people we know. I think people should be more worried about contracting the virus and giving it to people who could die.
Mhm.
Because it's actually affecting mostly the older population, the young population, and people who are immunocompromised. So, like,
yep.
just like with a lot of other illnesses, it's more about being good to, the people around you and respectful of their various conditions. Like, I don't know about everyone here's personal health history or whatever, but we're probably unlikely to die
Yeah.
from COVID-19 or what do you call it, contravirus.
Yeah, but like your 80-year-old next door neighbor, different story.
Exactly. So a lot of people are terrified of getting this illness and dying, and I think that's the wrong fear. That's the wrong way to look at this.
But
And so,
again, we're using data from a country to where there are a lot of unknowns. So
right.
environmental contaminants. So outside of that area, the mortality rate that we've seen so far doesn't seem to be as high as it was in China.
So let me talk about a little bit for a moment about what scares me the most. It's not the illness, it's the people's behavior.
Oh yeah.
So I'm more worried about panic. I'm more worried about and if you're listening to this, you're like, wow, these people are really paranoid and they're panicking. We're not panicking. Actually, we're preparing, which is totally different. And people make fun of doomsday preppers because I don't know why. It's just funny to
I
do.
feel like there's less to worry about if you're prepared like a Boy Scout.
Right, because what happens
Well, I mean, that's the motto of the Boy Scouts is
Mhm.
always prepared.
Yeah, what happens is you wait till the last minute, you run to the grocery store, you discover there's no food on the shelves. You're also out there exposing yourself, and there's gas lines. Like, it just gets bad. I
Yeah.
mean, I've been monitoring pictures online to see what stores are running out of. Almost every Home Depot is out of N95 masks. The shelves are just stripped. People are
There's
buying
signs
bleach,
for
like
the
bottles and
rationing
bottles
already.
of bleach. So the
Mhm.
bleach is gone in like some of these Walmarts, and people are posting those pictures. But if you go and look at pictures in Italy, the shelves are, with the exception of pre-made meatballs, the shelves are completely stripped.
Well, I mean, those are reserved for sleeping bags.
Yeah, apparently.
I wanted to hop back to the budget
Yeah.
prepper
Yeah.
topic for a second.
Sure.
Something that crossed my radar recently that I had never heard of before was this like colonial time survival food called pemmican.
Mhm.
I don't know if anybody else has heard of it before, but what's interesting about it is it's pretty much it's a protein source. It's made out of they take lean meat and they dry it out until it's like super dry that you can just snap it in half, and then they grind it up and they mix that with fat from an animal, and they add like a little bit of flavoring, but it gets this like shelf life of 50 years.
Mhm.
Actually, here's the you can look these recipes on up online and make it at home, but it's called pemmican. And just read this quick paragraph because I found it really fascinating that I'd never even heard of it before. But the secret to pemmican's long shelf life is in properly rendering the fat from the meat. The pemmican can be stored in an airtight container without refrigeration in a cool, dark, and dry place. If made and stored properly, it can last for years and even decades. There are reports of some pemmican lasting 50 years or more.
Now, is this in a container to where the fat is used to seal off and create a vacuum and not allow oxygen to come in? Or
I don't know why.
because I mean that used to be an old way of canning,
Mhm.
is to where you create a thick layer of fat and
So it's
then
not a
oxygen
layer
from the
of
outside
of
can't
it.
come in.
The fat when they clarify it, or I can't remember what they do exactly to the fat, but when it hardens,
Yeah.
it's not a layer on it. It's like it's part of the meat,
Okay.
and then you just break off a piece of it and you eat it. And they said it's not terrible to eat either. Like they said it's not super delicious, but it's also like light. It doesn't like weigh you down a lot, like what like in your material, and it has so much calories like
Yeah.
per like.
Well, and
density.
a lot of people just for simple options, the things that are going to last the longest are just going to be traditional dry goods that we all know:
Mhm.
pastas, rices, beans, flour, sugar. Sugar is a super cheap thing that you need to have, not only for nutritional value, but also as an antiseptic. So if you do get a wound or anything, you literally can just patch your wound.
Mm.
Just fill it with sugar, wrap it
Super
up,
glue.
wrap it
Oh
up.
yes, you need
Super glue is
Yeah,
pretty
and
important.
so the sugar it's antimicrobial, so it'll prevent a bacterial infection. I mean, that's what they used all throughout
Oh,
history,
on that
One
subject,
thing that I think, I sorry, didn't mean to
and
disrupt,
your
but I
body
think
will
one
absorb
thing
it.
that you just kind of have to really keep in mind with this kind of stuff is if you're doing doomsday prepping, a big part of your strategy is if if you take certain measures, you have a little bit of a food store, and by little bit I mean a week or 2 weeks or whatever, stuff like that. You have like your go bag and stuff. You have basic defense, nothing crazy. You don't have an arsenal. You've definitely increased your likelihood of survival for virtually any event by like 90-95%. And then as you go way farther than that, it really starts to have diminishing returns. So for most individuals, you just kind of need to get over that line where you increase your likelihood of survival, but drastically above everybody else. And then at a certain point, you gotta like you gotta start doing it like we do it for all the crazy wealthy people, and like there's no way you can afford to really push it. So I think that's kind of an important thing to remember.
Well, I also think that people don't understand that we we are we eat more than we need, and
Yeah.
so like you actually don't need as many calories if you are trying to survive, as because right now they're just available and abundant, especially in this
Yeah.
country.
so
And
Like
so
you said earlier, water. That's
yeah, water
critical.
is the critical thing.
Yeah, well, you,
like
you can go
I've
easily.
fasted for 2 weeks.
Yeah, you can go easily, like depending on your body condition, your fat stores in your body, you can go weeks without food.
Yeah.
But you can't go more than 3 days without water. You just die.
I think
So it's the most important thing that you need.
first aid kit. What's in your first aid kit's also really important. Some of the things that we have added to ours, we have sutures, we have lidocaine. If we have like leftover antibiotics or painkillers, we usually add those to our survival kit instead of throwing them away. We add super glue to our first aid kits because you can use that to close a wound in an emergency.
And if you're dating a redneck, then you can also make painkillers, anesthetics from the bark of willow trees.
I'm
Yeah.
so glad I have a
Yeah, I don't
redneck
know-
in my
I don't
life as a
really-
friend.
Yeah, I don't really know a great source for this stuff, but there are like the first aid kit that you typically want to have in your home to deal with like typical things that would happen in your home is distinctly because you're usually just looking to stabilize somebody until you can get to medical care.
I have a
That's a different
just
kind of
triage,
first
yeah.
aid kit than you'd want in like a real disaster situation.
I
They're
even have a
different
rare
things.
earth magnet in my first aid kit so that I can pull metal out of like my body if I
Oh,
need
that's
to.
a good idea. I didn't think of that one.
So there is one website. We're not gonna get too crazy, but so this is a good website, a good company that I've done business with in the past. Yes, they have hazmat suits. You don't necessarily need that.
Awesome for
depending where you
Halloween.
are. Yeah, great for Halloween.
That is a
But-
good Halloween idea.
This company, if you go to approvedgasmasks.com, they are not our sponsor. It would be great if they were, but they're not. If you are looking for an NBC, nuclear biological chemical mask, a lot of the stuff that you'll find online in military surplus will be old gas canisters that might not be good or they're way past their shelf life. This company actually has newly produced gas filters, so you can plug into your mask. They also have a huge list of gas masks. I'm pulling them now. So you can get commercial grade stuff to work in a chemical facility, or you can get military surplus or old military designs. They can get pretty expensive.
Yeah, I was just
or-
thinking
I was
this
just
is
saying, no,
pretty
their
pricey.
No,
Yeah,
their
they-
prices are fantastic.
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah.
that's way cheaper than a lot of the stuff that I've seen.
and this is a
elsewhere.
great company, so they're not going to gouge you. They're not going to scalp you. But one of the best masks that you can get down here is just the Israeli civilian gas mask kit. It's $80. $80 is worth.
But that's
staying alive.
available at most like
You know,
Army
the neat
surplus
thing-
stores.
No,
you
no,
could-
no, no, no.
you-
So
if
if you go to an Army surplus one,
Mhm.
that one's going to be like 40 years old, and then you might have rubber that's wearing out.
The ones
No,
I've
those
seen
are those
new.
are actually great.
These are newer production, so they might be even within the shelf life. So
Mhm.
it's a
yeah,
much
they
better
mass
option.
produce those. They're easy to get. They're cheap. And one of the concepts that we use a lot in like the hardcore disaster planning is when we build DR sites and things like that and whatnot. We like everything to be dual use. It's not just for disaster. It can also serve serve as a ski lodge or something like that, right? Well, that particular mask, it's really easy to strap a bong onto it.
Well, good to know.
I've seen this.
Yeah,
Good
it
to
is.
know.
But my personal mask that I use is an M85 mask, which they don't have on here. It's a pretty good, easy one to get. If you are wanting to use a rifle, then you might want to get one that has a side lug mount on the left-hand side, so you can mount a rifle and keep your mask on at the same time, instead of one that just has the gas filter in the front.
And I guess you might want a supply of weed if that's your thing, since you're going back
It
to
might be
bongs.
hard to
you know.
come. It might be
Yeah.
hard
Might be
to come
hard
by.
to come by unless you grow it yourself.
Hey, it never, even if you don't smoke weed, you might want some
You need
if
it
you're
in the med-
dealing with that situation.
It's, you
Oh,
know,
well, speaking of weed,
some of the edibles would be useful in the medical kit, you know,
Yeah, why
for,
not?
for pain relief.
speaking of weed, I think you need to have an ample supply of medication.
Oh, for sure.
Um,
So
Oh yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
have like blood pressure issues, for instance, that's a big one. Because if you're gonna find yourself in a disaster situation and be cut off from your blood pressure meds
And your
have to-
doctor.
yeah, and your doctor, and have to move a distance and maybe hike 10 miles, you're screwed.
Insulin.
and if
Oh, insulin is
yeah.
a really hard one. Like
Mhm.
if you're diabetic, man, good luck.
Try to get a backup
you're
supply
kinda
somehow from your
screwed.
doctor.
Well, I mean,
Actually, how do you get that from a doctor?
Well,
It's
you go to your physician, and so even if you just tell them that you're going to be traveling for extended periods of time, if it's non-opioid based, if it's not just like OxyContin or something, if it's a drug like something for diabetes or heart conditions, then they can give you an ample supply at least 3 months. So
Yeah, that's not the hard that's not a hard one. The problem with insulin is that you got to keep it cold.
you have to keep it cold.
So like if you need insulin, one of the things that you're probably going to want to have around is a big ass block of dry ice. And that's something you're going to have
How
to
are you going to keep
refresh
that
every
around?
so
it?
often.
How
Yeah,
long
you're
can
going to have
that
to fresh it around.
Well,
Actually, if you pack
the
pack
dry
a
ice just evaporates.
Yes.
yeah, no, it does. but
Even
if-
in your deep freezer.
Yeah.
So.
if you pack a like your typical cooler filled with dry ice, like just filled to the top with dry ice, and this is your dry ice supply,
I smell a
been
business
told-
idea.
I've been told that will last for like a month or two.
Oh, and
Uh,
pro tip on the dry ice: go to the ice cream supply shops for the ice cream trucks, because the dry ice is like 35 cents a pound instead of like $5 a pound when
Oh,
you go to
that's
the grocery
cool.
store.
But I think what would be cool here is if somebody invented a solar cooler, and then you could just like solar.
or
Cool.
crank, right?
It
Yeah.
would be kind of hard to
Well,
Well,
have
keeping
a-
dry
a
ice
little-
cool
a
and
little
solar,
crazy.
you're going to have
So-
several feet of panels.
So I know that there is a popular. Again, we are not sponsored by these companies, but I like them. Going back a little bit to the Utah area where the Mormons are. There's a company in Utah. These are all made in America, so you don't have to worry about your supply line. It's a company called Lifetime. Traditionally, Lifetime has made event chairs and tables out of plastic, molded plastic. They also make a really great ice chest. They've improved them over the years. They used to be kind of, flimsy, but now they're really, really solid. You've seen popular ice chests that cost a lot of money, like Yeti, that are sealed. They have nice little gaskets and everything to keep everything watertight. These are a cheaper option. So you can get these for a third or a fourth of the price of other brands. But these are really rugged. I've driven across the country with these things, and they're fantastic. So if you just need, let's say you are diabetic and you have to keep your insulin cold, these things will keep water or ice up for at least 5 days. And then after that point, they're still cool. They're just not ice cold. So up to 7 days, you probably have water that's
yeah, the
cool enough to keep your insulin good.
The
So
difficulty level of keeping a food supply that's going to last more than 5 or 6 days is it just gets exponentially harder.
Yeah.
But I think for most people, like if you just want to get over that 90 percentile mark,
Yeah.
I'd say that like in your house you might want to have 10 days in case you have to bunker, but then in your go bag you just maybe want to have 4 or 5 MREs, and you can roll with that. And then just realize that you're going to have to cut down the amount you eat. You're going to have to conserve energy. You might be hiking slow. But the one thing I encourage for just like standard average Joe is don't overdo it. Make sure that like you do the stuff that's the real important stuff, and you always have a way to hunker down at your house for at least 72 hours, and you always have a way to go and have everything you need for at least 72 hours in
Yeah.
addition to that. And then you've definitely increased your life expectancy
Yeah.
like a lot.
But
Toilet paper.
I wouldn't really recommend somebody just trying to pack a lot of like lunch meats or anything in your ice chest. I'm just recommending this life chest or this ice chest for people that do have medical needs
Yeah,
where they have to
totally.
keep drugs cold.
Yeah, toilet paper, guys. Okay,
You're
so
gonna have to get used to leave.
when
Actually, oh, I can't
when Fukushima happened, I was reaching out to people there, and I was like, "What can I send you? What can I help you?" And they were like, "Toilet paper." Like there is none. So it turns out like toilet paper is a big deal, and it runs out. So
And it's kind of
if you like a clean bum,
yeah.
And
my hiney's clean.
kind of surprising though, because Japan's like
It's Charmin
has
clean.
bidets everywhere. Like they have less of a calling for all
Well,
the
that's
toilet
just
paper.
one thing. That's just one weird thing in Asia in general. Toilet paper is like just like hard to come by. You go in like the hotel and you have like this like little tiny roll. You know, it's like crazy.
It's 'cause they have
Toilet
bidets.
paper is like
Mhm.
we are toilet paper rich here in the United States. you
Well,
know.
don't count on it though. In an emergency, have some extra toilet paper.
You should carry a
And-
bidet with you.
And,
Yeah.
and maybe even
Camping
they're
bidet.
they're super light.
It's called a river.
They don't take up a lot of room. But if you just have a backpack, you could just throw a few sponges in there too,
Yeah.
like little cleaning sponges that don't have the little scrubbing side.
And I mean, if there's nuclear clouds hovering, you're not necessarily going to have a problem washing poop off a sponge.
I
You're going to
mean-
have bigger
Yeah.
problems.
When you're emptying your sock drawer into the garbage, you can always throw those socks into a box in your survival kit for some future use.
Yeah.
Some bum cleaning.
Some bum cleaning.
Yeah. So
Can we
I mean,
think of anything else?
there are a lot of practical stuff or practical things that you can do just to stay on the low end budget.
What should people not do?
Hmm.
Because this is all stuff they should do.
It really depends on their planning.
Okay.
Yeah, it
So-
really depends on your situation.
So if you don't have, so we live in an urban environment where a lot of people don't even own cars, so they're not leaving the city. Obviously, those people would probably want to concentrate on stockpiling food,
hmm
and keeping their own little place safe and getting to know their neighbors.
Well, actually, in all cases, a mountain bike is going to be something that might
Oh, yeah.
be really useful. Like a
You
good,
can get out of the city with
like a good, not your typical hybrid, but your actual like hardcore mountain bike. That's one of the things I'd want around. You
I have a
gotta.
mobility scooter.
I don't think.
Well,
you know.
You also have a pirate ship that you
Well, I
can
mean,
It's a pirate ship mobility scooter.
For people in this area, the attitude I think you should really take is think about it from the perspective of how would you deal with an earthquake. Assuming that people might be injured, you might be injured. You
Mhm.
got the food problems, you got the water problems, all of those problems exist in an earthquake
Yeah.
scenario.
So
And
so
if you
like
plan around that and you go with those guidelines, you've definitely massively increased the likelihood
Yeah.
you're going to survive.
you
versus
should
what
think
you
about-
So
like-
for me, for example, I live in a smaller apartment. My plan is not to hunker down and stay. And also, if you are thinking about the city, you need to look at the avenues that you're going to approach. How are you going to get out of
Yeah.
the city?
The
Bridges
city's
might be
hard to
shut
get
down.
out of.
Yeah.
It's a
So
very hard city to get
you're
out
going to have to figure out what roads to avoid, what roads to take, etc.
Because if you're in a
But-
situation where if you're in a city like this and you're in a situation where you have to hunker down for like 2 weeks,
Mhm.
you're already likely in a situation where you're completely screwed.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks in, money's not gonna be that valuable.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. So-
And then and then that's the other thing. After you make it. Okay, useful concept to know. The U.S. has what we call a long weekend economy. Virtually anything can go wrong, and as long as we can come to some kind of resolution within 4 days, everything just kind of works out. But after we pass that kind of 4 or 5 day mark, all the supplies for people who didn't prepare for themselves are gone, and people will start to die very quickly in millions. And this is a thing that a lot of research has been done on. We call it the long weekend economy. So if you're in a situation where you can survive a week or 2 weeks on your own, you're not going to have a problem raiding places
Yeah.
for supplies. You're
Well,
not.
So for example, just my
I
little
mean, that
kit,
sounds really cruel to say,
Yeah.
but if you're thinking about this stuff at all, you're already in like a very small percentage of
Yeah.
people who are doing that.
So in my kit that I have a go back in my place. I have extra sets of socks, because keeping dry feet is
Oh,
really
yeah, it's a good
important. Especially if you're having to hike it out on foot. You don't want to get trench rot or anything in your feet. And plus, you can also use those as bandages if you need as well. You can tie them around a wrist or an appendage.
How long did you live in the woods?
I lived in the woods for almost a year and a half.
Yeah.
I was living off the land, so
He's an
I
expert on this.
so in my bag I have water purification. I have 2 different small hiking first aid kits that I can take mobily to close wounds. I have a suture kit so I can sew you up. I have a shotgun. I have a shotgun, which is legal in California, in case I need to hunt. I have a machete. I have a few knives, a couple little hatchets.
Soap.
Yeah. And one of the more important things that I have is a folding saw. So a folding saw allows you to do 2 things. If you kill large game, you can use it to cut through bones and use those to make tools. But the most important thing is to actually, if you are having to go out into the woods, which is a great place to live and survive, to be honest, you can build shelter with it. So you can use cordage, and you can cut everything to length and make a really quick lean-to, and then cover it with a lot of the branches and everything. So it's a very mobile pack, but I also have 2 bottles of 1-liter bottles of water. I have 2 MREs in there because it's long enough for me to get out of town. And then I can start procuring food through my fishing kit that I have in there.
I recently learned if you forgot the soap, that you
yeah.
can use the ash from your fire.
Yeah.
It's very alkali. I guess that's the word alkali came from that a source. I think that has to do with like ash.
It's saponification is the process of making soap.
Mhm.
So what you can do is
But it's not good for your skin to do it like long term from the fire. But it does clean you.
Oh no. Well, I mean, you don't want
Just
to
ash by itself.
Oh, ash by yourself. Okay.
Ash by itself, without like the lye or any
Yeah.
of the other things, you can use that to actually clean your hands with water.
But I think earlier that was super good advice. I mean, if a really bad situation happens, running out and figuring out a way to live on the side of a mountain for a while is probably one of your
Mhm.
best
Yeah.
options.
Well, the
Yeah.
first thing you
It's
find you find flowing water sources. You don't want still water because then you can get things like toxoplasmosis
oh yeah,
or amoebas from the water,
yeah. Like what was the
especially
deal with that raw water movement thing
yeah,
that was going on down
especially
here? That's so
especially
stupid.
yeah, if you're in an area that has beavers. Beavers are really bad about
Mhm.
polluting the water with amoebas. So diarrhea is your worst enemy if you're trying to survive because you're just going to dehydrate and you're just going to die.
Yeah, and you can't store water for a long time.
No.
Like you really can't.
So another thing in my pack is I have a small little collapsible metal container that I can boil water in or just cook material in. Or even if you have to improvise, it's a little extra weight, but it serves 2 purposes. You can bring 1 can of a canned food. I would try to get the heaviest, richest, most nutrient thing that you could get, something that's going to pack on calories. It might not be delicious. It might just be a pure can of
Spam.
like cream of chicken or something really heavy. But then you keep the can, and you can also use that for cooking small amounts of food or boiling water.
A little bit of bleach is a good idea to have too, because like you might find yourself in a situation where you have a good water supply, but then you've got to move, say 10, 15 miles when you're not.
Mhm.
And if you take on a few gallons of water with you, and you just put literally a few drops of bleach in it, you extend the storage time of that water
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize
very
that.
significant amount. Bleach is your friend. You do not overuse it, but that is a thing. Because if you take water from most common streams, you pretty much have less than 5 days before that is potentially harmful for you in every case. But if you do that and you put a little bleach in it, just a few drops, it's not going to harm you. It's not the water you get out of your tap has a little bit of bleach in it.
Yeah, it's all
So
chlorinated.
Chris had a
Little bit of
thing
chlorine.
I want to go back to.
Mhm.
Sorry. Money might not be important in a real disaster. I'm not talking about coronavirus, probably, but
It's the one that goes past the long weekend.
yeah, the one that goes past the long weekend. So what should you do in that case? When we were talking about this earlier, that maybe silver. You said booze.
Yeah, I mean, if you just buy,
People are probably not taking Bitcoin.
and probably if you're gonna like stockpile some booze for trading, like probably should avoid the plastic bottle. You want it to like last for a long time, so
Just
Also,
go-
keep in mind weight of these things.
It is. I mean, this
And I
is
mean, the
when you
most
hunker
valuable
down.
stuff you have is going to be the stuff that you need.
Yeah.
So, like your first aid kit, might
Extra bandages,
yeah,
sugar.
stuff like that. All that stuff is actually going to be the most valuable stuff. So, in a weird sort of way, if you just have like all your go preparations, a little bit extra, a little bit more than you
Yeah,
need, you have everything you need to
and
trade.
another thing that you need to think about that people probably overlook as well to put in your little go bag is to make sure to take a decent amount of salt. Because if you are out there exerting a lot of energy, you're going to need to replace some electrolytes and stay hydrated. So
Yeah, but I
salt's a good
definitely
thing.
wouldn't. I definitely wouldn't bother like doing like silver or gold or anything like that. That's just heavy. It just weighs you down. You can throw 2 grand in bills and in the back, and if that's still useful, okay. Hey, if it isn't, well,
You
at
have
least it
kindling for
isn't
the
heavy
fire.
and it's kindling. Well, actually, most you'd want to get old bills for that because the new ones do not burn.
Oh, good to know. I did not know that. That's a
They're
fun fact.
plastic.
So, Chris also brought up something earlier about it was actually online. You texted this, but you've been filling up your gas tank,
Oh,
even
yeah.
if it's a quarter down.
Mm.
That way, it's always full. And so, I think it's a good thing to start doing right now.
And I've actually I'm planning on keeping at least like 20 gallons, like because I run diesel, so 20 gallons at home
Yeah.
that are in cans that I can just throw in the back of the truck if we had to leave, because I kind of just extend my range. It could extend my range.
Yeah, because diesel it doesn't necessarily have the same shelf life. You don't have to have additives to store diesel like you do with gasoline.
Doesn't kerosene have a really long shelf life?
You can't really use it for a combustible vehicle though.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to have like a kerosene lamp, great.
I mean, if you're really paranoid, you can get something flex fuel that might be able to use that.
I don't know.
No,
Speaking of
Ethanol?
vehicles, I've been very curious about EMP protection recently, and I'm not finding easy answers to those questions.
It's probably not a good answer because like there's so much computer running the cars now that I don't think a modern car would survive the MP.
Yeah, no,
probably-
it definitely
probably not.
wouldn't. Definitely wouldn't. I mean, it would. Well, it's funny. It actually depends on. I heard one talk on this that was really interesting. But apparently, with EMP, the angle of things really matters when an EMP pulse hits.
And
So
whether or
one
not
car
it's
that's-
energized at
yeah,
the time
so-
it happens.
Well, and
Yep.
the altitude of the detonation.
Yeah, the altitude, the detonation, and the angle at which, so you can have a modern car that's facing in one direction that is completely toast, and another car right next to it that's facing in the other direction that works perfectly. Or at least that's what they think. I mean, it's kind of hard to test these things. So, there's
And
a certain amount
wanna
of
go
physics
all
and
out,
math.
if you want to go all out, you
involved,
can
but-
always build a Faraday cage around your car.
Yeah, or you can just like get yourself an old Lincoln
and
Town
that's just
car,
your
an
prepper
old
vehicle.
an old Tacoma, or they're one of those old Mercedes like 300s or something like that.
Get an old truck that's before the 90s.
Yeah, like
that
one of
runs
the
on
old
a carburetor.
Tacomas or
Anything
something,
that runs
or
on a
Helix.
carburetor, you should be good.
Sorry, guys. I just got this headline that popped up on my phone. I have to read it. CNN. When a woman snorted 550 times the usual dose of LSD, she had a life-changing experience.
No
What
shit.
is the normal amount of LSD? I'm
50
just curious.
micrograms.
Oh, okay.
50 micrograms.
And it said in a good way.
In a good way.
in a good way.
Yeah, in a good way.
I mean, I can see that.
What? That's a weird headline. A very strange headline.
I don't know. Maybe we should test this.
Anyways, I really don't think a modern car will like do well if that was to actually happen because of all the electronics. So you're probably better off with an older vehicle or like a little motorcycle go ped.
Volkswagen Bug would be great.
I ride motorcycles, and I always have.
Well,
a
motorcycles are
motorcycle.
great 'cause you can
Motorcycle would be
split
great.
lanes.
Yeah.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of motorcycles. We actually keep our motorcycle. My wife and I decided we weren't selling it mostly for this reason because I'm like, we'll do old.
You have to get out of the city.
I just watched these guys in a like online 40 cop car police chase through the Mission like a week ago, and in the end they were cornered, and then they stole a motorcycle and they got across the bridge and they got away.
You could do magic on motorcycles.
Oh yeah. I've
Yeah, I would recommend having a motorcycle rather than a car, because one of the things you have to keep in mind is if EMP takes out all the cars, there are a lot of cars that are going to be on the road. They're going to be stuck there.
Mhm.
You might not be able to get through there. So if your car happens to be, a big ass truck that can ram these things out of the way? Maybe.
Chris.
But that, yeah.
Me?
But a motorcycle, or what I would do is I would go with a bicycle strategy, frankly, because the speed you're going to move is not necessarily going to be the biggest factor that's going to determine your survival.
But hey, if you got a golf cart, whatever you got, you use it.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm trying to find motorcycles that I think are EMP proof, and it's really hard to figure out.
Well, some people have
They're all
kids too.
fuel
They
injected,
can't.
the modern ones. So.
Yeah.
Some people have kids. They can't put their kids on a motorcycle.
Get yourself a nice 1970s
But you can
Vespa.
eat them.
Well, I mean, you could also find an old motorcycle that has kickstart.
Yeah.
Definitely want Kickstart,
So
and
if you want one
I
of
wanted some shocks just to go to a dirt bike that can.
Hmm.
It makes a huge difference. You know, my first bike was a Kawasaki KLR, and I could just the really high curbs,
Mhm.
not a regular size curb, but the really high one. I could have a passenger just run it over at high speed. Didn't matter.
That's
The
nice.
shocks just absorb that.
So I have just about 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, you got to get going. You
Yeah,
got-
unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately, I've got to go to a basketball game.
Oh
Um,
no.
Yeah.
Oh no, are you forced to sit right by the side of the court or anything?
Yeah, I'm forced to sit in good seats.
Oh no.
I know, right? It sucks. But anyway, what do you say? Let's close this out with what should we say to all the people who think we're just absolutely batshit crazy and the naysayers of the dooms preppers?
Well, I would say, do you have car insurance? Do you have health insurance? I
Yeah.
mean,
This is insurance.
This is just another form of insurance.
it doesn't take up that much room.
No, and you know what? Worst case scenario, you eat the food you already bought,
Yeah.
Right.
so it's just extra food.
Or you donate it to people who need it.
Exactly. So,
So-
there's not really a downside at all,
Yeah.
unless you go all out and you just spend like $5,000 on crap.
Plus,
you
it's
don't
actually kind of fun to think about.
need. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah,
a
I
fun
mean, there's-
exercise.
And some of the
there's
gears
a
are
line
like-
you go over where it's
Or-
practically like a mental problem.
Oh yeah, there's TV,
there's
there's reality
definitely-
shows. For
yeah,
those
yeah.
people.
To where you're bearing
You're like
50
doomsday.
buses.
You're not a doomsday prepper. You're a doomsday hoarder. You know, there's a line there. But basic preparation, and especially in a place like San Francisco, this area, if you're not doing basic preparation to survive, like a major earthquake, I don't know. You're an idiot because it's going to happen. Something's going to happen.
Yeah.
And
Whether it's a natural disaster or a man-made disaster or whatever.
And
it's
disasters
something.
in a dense urban area like this are just amplified. Like, wow,
all your services are cut off.
The
As soon
city
as
effect
something
is a big deal. I think the cities are big targets because they create really big reactions.
yeah.
And so, regardless of what the threat model is there, the idea that in a city, it's interesting because that population is less likely to think about these things, but they're the most likely to be hit by
hit the
it.
hardest.
And so, there's something about I think the effect that it's made psychologically on a city that I think makes this more important if you live in a city and having some reasoned way of thinking about it.
Yeah. So I don't think we're crazy. I think that you should become a doomsday tourist, just and try it out.
Yeah, and again, worst case, you're gonna have extra food to take on a camping trip or something. So
Yep.
yeah, it's great.
So gonna close out this episode, which was brought to you by Coleman Camping Stoves.
No,
It was not brought to us by Coleman Camping Stoves or Bass Pro Shop or Cracker Barrel,
but it could be.
but it could
It was
be.
brought to you by Emodi
Or
Madi.
Waffle House.
And you have the
apparently.
shits in the middle of a disaster.
Talking about preparing for disasters, Bass Pro Shop is a great place to go and look for supplies. You have plenty of camping gear and survivalist sort of accoutrement.
REI as well.
It's cheaper at Bass Pro Shop.
It is
Yeah.
cheaper at Bass Pro, but you do get
That's like the whole.
And they're fun to
the
just
lighter,
wander
more
around
compact
too.
stuff at
But
REI.
you know what REI doesn't sell?
Ooh,
Guns.
Boats.
Guns.
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 That's true.
I like the
Bass Pro
accoutrement.
sells guns.
The accoutrement reference. I feel like we should develop a French vocabulary for these different things. To make it a little classier.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's easier to say accoutrement instead of crap.
Les guns. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Know your firewall is trash. Your network is dead. Take a look at all of these graphs. Unbox and no stopping. That trace route stop hopping. Software that we backdoor. Boot shells that we hack for. Toolbars and setups. Our payload stay fud. We reflect your defects and cause an older flood. We got got packets on packets on packets on packets. Got packets on packets on packets on packets on packets on packets. Got packets on packets on packets on packets on packets on packets. Got packets. Rolex and Cloudflare, we don't care. Anytime,